Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's full council meeting. Please be seated. Everyone ready? Right. Welcome everyone to this evening's meeting. Especially welcome to people who have come along into the gallery this evening. If we could start on the agenda with the evacuation procedure. A fire drill is not expected, so if the alarm sounds, please evacuate the building quickly and calmly. Please use the stairs and do not use the lifts. Once out of the building, please gather outside the Yorkshire Bank on the opposite side of the road. Please exit by the door by which you entered the room or by the fire exits, which are clearly indicated by the standard green fire exit signs. If you need any assistance in evacuating the building, please make yourself known to a member of staff. Please also make sure that all of your mobile phones are turned off or set to silence. Item 2 on the agenda. Do we have any apologies for absence from this meeting? Councillor Condicle.
Madam, the full length of the meeting. Can I apologise? I might need to leave early because I'm not feeling particularly well. It's a long meeting.
Councillor Condicle. Item. Councillor Troman, sorry.
Vangasane.
Item 3, filming. All members are requested to turn on their microphones before speaking, to speak clearly into the microphones in front of them, and remember to turn it off when they have finished speaking. A microphone will be provided for members of the public to use who have notified that they wish to speak. Item 4, minutes of the previous, to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 4th of December. Councillor Evans.
In relation to minute CL42B, I'd just like it on the minutes, and I'm yet to receive a response from the said portfolio holder.
Could you say again which item it was, Councillor Evans?
42B, in relation to Councillor Lloyd, portfolio holder for Arts and Leisure, provide Councillor Kay Evans with a written response to his question regarding the Glendale Live system.
I apologise, you have not yet received a reply, Councillor Evans. I will ensure that you do. Right, okay, we will deal with that outside of the meeting. Pardon? Can I, other than the point that has been raised, are the minutes of the previous meeting approved?
Yes, Chair.
Thank you. Item 6 are the announcements. Councillor Walmsley, I understand you wish to make an announcement, which I have been previously notified of.
This announcement. I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank colleagues from both sides for their forbearance and kind wishes over the last couple of months. As colleagues will know, my wife is expecting, happy to announce, a boy. But obviously there's been some complications therein, and I've had well wishes privately from the opposition side, from the other side of the chamber, as well as my colleagues here. And I just wanted to thank colleagues for those kind words and their thoughts. a special mention to Councillor Evans, who's been a real super sub at very last minute, couple of hours notice sometimes, for particularly for OSPs and other committees when I've been otherwise engaged in hospital with my wife. So thank you to everyone, and including to Councillor Glass, who had to leave OSP early the other week for a very serious emergency in the George Eliot. So just a thank you to all colleagues.
Thank you. I missed item 5 on the agenda, which was declaration of interest. Other than those that are printed within the agenda, does anyone have any other declarations of interest? None? Okay, thank you. I also need to, which is a great honour, to present to Councillor Chris Watkins, the Mayor from last year, for his picture that has been hanging in the parlour until now. Where is it? Oh. Hey Chris, congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Item 7 on the agenda is the censures of a member. The Executive Director is to read censures, and there are no debate or speakers on this item. Simone.
There are 2 censures to read out. So on the 29th of July 2019, a hearings panel was convened to consider the following complaint. Councillor Kandaka posted comments on Facebook and Twitter stating that the complainant was aggressive and very dishonest, and that he had been removed as moderator at the St Nicholas Community Forum for making false claims about a planning meeting relating to Weddington. It was also stated that he is the keenest of all Tories on increasing the amount of development on the northeastern Nuneaton. The comment suggesting that the complainant was aggressive or too aggressive was subjective, and while inappropriate to be aired on a public forum, it was not an issue for consideration under the Code of Conduct, as this was Councillor Kandaka's opinion of the complainant. The issue for consideration was calling a fellow councillor dishonest, as this connoted a breach of trust and criminal liability, and was a serious issue for consideration as the statements had been made on a public forum. The panel made the following findings. The statement that the complainant was dishonest was not based on facts or justified, and went beyond that which was necessary, and therefore damaged the reputation of the complainant and was disrespectful, therefore a breach of para 3(1). In respect of para 5, there is a place, time and way of challenging the opposition in a reasonable manner, and then there is excessive, which is when the code would be engaged. Damaging confidence in the planning system by accusing a member of being dishonest and making false statements could reasonably be regarded as bringing his office into disrepute. Accusing a political party of predetermination could be regarded as bringing the authority into disrepute, and making the statement on a public forum would be classed as bringing both the office and authority into disrepute. As a result of the findings, the panel imposed a number of sanctions, one of which was to publicly censure Councillor Kandaka. This record shall be recorded in the minutes and be available for public inspection. The second censure. On the 16th of September 2019, a hearings panel heard the following complaint against Councillor Keith Kandaka. On the 30th of January 2019, at the extraordinary council meeting, Councillor Kandaka had an angry outburst in front of members of the public after becoming agitated at what he considered was a deliberate refusal by the Mayor to let him speak on the issue of green bins, and in doing so raised his voice at the Mayor, shouting that he was entitled to speak and asking why he was not being allowed to speak. Councillor Kandaka later published a video of the incident on YouTube, posted it on social media with the title, The Full Meeting Farce. The hearings panel concluded, the behaviour displayed by Councillor Kandaka during the outburst was disrespectful towards the Mayor and therefore a breach of para 3A of the Code of Conduct. In respect of para 5 of the Code of Conduct, it is unacceptable to behave in the manner displayed by Councillor Kandaka at a public meeting and to subsequently post a video on social media referring to the incident as a farce, creates a poor impression of the Council and its members and brings the Council, the Office of the Mayor and Councillor Kandaka into disrepute in breach of para 5 of the Code of Conduct. As a result of the findings, the hearing panel decided that Councillor Kandaka should be publicly censured for his failure to comply with the Council's Code of Conduct, arising from his behaviour at the Extraordinary Council. This censure shall be minuted and shall be available for public inspection.
No, I'm sorry, Councillor Kondaka, there is no discussion on the censures. Moving to agenda item 8, public participation. The first question is from Mr. Lee Downs.
Ladies and gentlemen, Lady Mayor, thank you. 46,095 residents across the Borough voted to leave the European Union in June 2016. And thanks to our Prime Minister, we have now got Brexit done. Can the Leader of the Council please outline why she did not agree to the requests of local residents who wanted the Council to raise the Union flag on top of the Town Hall on the 31st of January, alongside other councils in the Midlands, to mark our withdrawal from the European Union and bring closure for our community after 3 years of division?
Councillor Jackson.
Question, Mr. Downs. The council flies the Union Jack every day from the town hall.
Mr. Steve Hay, you have a question, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So far in 2019-20, and thanks to a dedicated group of volunteers, Nuneaton's 4 food bank centres have fed nearly 4,700 people, of whom over 1,800 are children. The Tory government's shambolic rollout of universal credit and their continued failure to outlaw 0 hours contracts are a major contribution to a situation whereby there are now apparently more food banks than McDonald's branches. Can I ask the Leader of the Council to confirm that she and her colleagues condemn this disgraceful state of affairs, but that while it continues, the Council will do what it can to help the local food bank services?
Thank you, Mr. Hay. Councillor Jackson.
Can I begin by placing on record my sincere appreciation for the dedicated work of the local food bank volunteers. They do a tremendous job helping out not only adults, but so many children too. Like you, I am appalled at the shambolic rollout of universal credit. In my opinion, the 5-week wait for payment is frankly cruel. I can confirm that, of course, the Council will offer appropriate help to the food bank.
Councillor Jackson. Mr. Carl Mayer, please, who wants to make a following statement on behalf of the Woodlands Action Group. Mr. Mayer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Having watched the recent local plan committee meeting on video, I really could not believe that the whole meeting was taken up by the topic of more traveller sites. Surely the first and most important topic should have been the review of the housing targets. Councillor Phillips promised an immediate review when the Residents' Action Group handed him a 6,000 plus petition. He also repeated his claim in this chamber and at Cabinet. What is the delay, Councillor Phillips? Meetings like this should have been done at the start of the local plan process, instead of a secretive manner with no minutes taken. In my opinion, the way the Labour Group, under both past and present portfolio holders, have conducted the local plan process is disgraceful. From the election leaflets that were not true to the promises of returning the woodlands to the Greenbelt, also the mysterious signing of the duty to cooperate, which lumped an extra 4,000 houses onto this borough's actual need, which by planning law they did not have to accept. In the paper the other night it was reported that Labour councillors from Coventry are now ironically calling for their leaders to review the housing targets, citing the fact that the numbers are too high and they should be looking after their green spaces. The leader of Coventry City Council then declared that maybe they should be looking into using available brownfield sites instead of green fields. If this is the case, could Councillor Phillips please contact him to ask him why they were not used by Coventry in the first place? Then we might not have to accept the 4,000 extra houses from them in our Trump-style climate-wrecking local plan. I have also been asked by many residents of Bedworth how the town has benefited from joining up with Nuneaton in 1974. Last week I posted a poll on the Bedworth Community Forum with a simple question: Who thinks Bedworth joining Nuneaton in 1974 has been a success? Yes or no? The results were astounding. 11 people said yes, and a staggering 498 said no. Most of the comments also on the poll post described it as being the worst decision in Bedworth's history. They also complained about Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council being biased towards Nuneaton, and Bedworth's ruling group Labour councillors of doing absolutely nothing for the town. I would love to know how these perceptions could possibly be wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Brian Walmsley, you have a question for Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. Recently, Bob Tromans has been on social media claiming his Conservative government are going out inflation-busting rises for Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council, and that NBBC is set to receive an additional £700,000 this year, an increase of almost 5%. There was a reference. A big claim to be making, which he got all offended about when challenged. After many years of savage and brutal cuts to all council budgets in the country, it concerns me that this is very disingenuous. Can the leader of the council please advise me if the Conservative government really have been giving this magical and mythical £700,000 5% increase to Nuneaton and Bedworth Borough Council?
Thank you, Mr. Walmsley. Councillor Jackson.
There has been a £700,000 increase in the core spending power calculation used in the local government finance settlement. However, £300,000 of this is from council tax, as government has made the assumption that we will increase council tax to the full referendum limit. This is not money given by government, but by council taxpayers. £200,000 is new homes bonus, and a further £200,000 from our start-up funding assessment, which has mainly come from inflation on business rates. I won't comment on a social media post, but do believe the full information in regard to these monies will interest the people of the borough.
Mr. Sekovich, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and thank you for getting the surname. I'll keep this short tonight. I've noted with interest that it's been reported in the Coventry Telegraph that Coventry City councillors' own plans have been criticised by some of their own controlling Labour councillors for building on Greenbelt land. It is a shame that some of our own MBBC Labour councillors are not prepared to stand up in the same way for their own wards where valuable Greenbelt land will be permanently destroyed, primarily in support of 4,000 houses which Coventry do not want to build themselves for their own residents. I was pleased to see that after the adoption of the Borough Plan in August 2019, the Local Plan Committee has finally been formed and the immediate review we have been promised has begun. But I would not call a 5-month waiting period immediate, at least the process has finally begun. I hope I don't need to remind the Council that over 6,600 residents signed the Residents' Action Group petition expecting a full and detailed review, and that this was democratically adopted by the members of this chamber. I was disappointed to see that the starting point that was chosen for the first meeting was traveller sites. I understand that this needs to be looked at eventually. However, this is merely tinkering at the edges of the borough plan. If this process is to have meaning, then all aspects of this plan need to be reviewed. I would urge members of the Local Plan Committee to voice these concerns to the portfolio holder and chair of this committee and ensure that the spirit and intent of the residents and petitioners is not ignored. I looked at the programme for the Local Plan review and I have to say found it lacked clarity and transparency. It appears vague and ambiguous as to what will be reviewed and covered in each of the future committee meetings. It gives tasks but does not set out any clear aims and objectives or detail on what will be reviewed as part of each meeting. I therefore hope the portfolio holder will provide greater clarity and transparency of each of the future scheduled meetings.
Thank you, Mr. Sekovich. That completes the public questions. We'll move to agenda item 9. I am well aware that the agenda does say that there have been no decisions made under special urgency decisions, But I understand that 2 decisions were made after the agendas had been published. So could I ask Mr Davis to please clarify the position?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, two decisions having made. The first is to convene a council tax setting committee to be held at 4 p.m. on Wednesday of this week. And the second decision was to change the makeup of that committee from 6 members to 8 members.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to agenda item 10, Cabinet report, and I would remind members that they are questions only. Thank you. Does anyone have any questions they wish to ask? Councillor Golby.
Question relates to point A for the Arts and Leisure portfolio, where it says a report regarding the above was submitted seeking Cabinet approval of recommendations relating to high-level options and designs in order to determine future strategic direction to support the delivery of new leisure facilities in the borough. Can I ask the portfolio holder to confirm that off the top of my head, £4.75 million will be generated from the Arbury HSG 2 development, and that has been in the borough plan allocated to the south, which Arbury has conveniently been placed into, which covers funding to go to the Bedworth leisure centre. So people in Arbury actually don't get any of that money, or don't get first look in at that money at all.
The Arbury development is earmarked for the Bedworth area, but that's if it gets built, obviously. It may not get built, so that money may not go to that area. But yes, it is. And people in Arbury, the same as anywhere else in the borough, use Bedworth Leisure Centre. If we don't rebuild Bedworth Leisure Centre, then that's going to impact on Nuneaton Leisure Centre. It's as simple as that. People from all over the borough use Bedworth. People from all over the borough use Nuneaton. So it's irrespective from where the money comes from.
Questions from the Cabinet meeting on the 5th of February. My first question to the Leader of the Council regarding the quarterly review of strategic performance report, 3rd quarter 1920. Within that report we had the quarterly figure of composting rates in the borough, and we compost just 33% of what we get in green waste. So does the Leader of the Council agree with me in light of the fact that we have now declared a climate emergency in the borough, that figure should be far higher? And my second question is to the portfolio holder for planning and development, relating to the planning portal for viewing planning applications on page 39. I would like to put on record there have been more improvements to the planning portal, but I was hoping that Councillor Phillips could possibly update Council in light of the fact he did agree at Cabinet that he would go away to speak to the communications team about launching some sort of YouTube video to inform residents how to use the new portal.
Do you want to ask the first?
Of course, we are always seeking to improve performance throughout the Council's activities, and I'm pleased that Councillor Evans welcomes the fact that we've declared a climate emergency, and I'm sure every other councillor in the room is looking forward to receiving the recommendations of the Climate Change Working Party.
Pleased to hear Councillor Evans say that there has been an improvement in the planning portal. However, at this present moment in time, truthfully, I haven't spoken with communications about the future video.
Councillor Golby, you have a further question.
Given the last answer I've just received from the portfolio holder for Arts and Leisure, can you confirm what the alternative uses for the money will be should the leisure centre not get built? I have made representation to officers about some things that I would like to be undertaken in the area that I represent using some of the money, and have been told that that's not going to be possible. So I'd like to know what alternative uses for the money have actually been earmarked, because I've not got a clue, and as a representative of the area, it would be nice to actually be able to tell that to my residents if that is actually the case, which I doubt very much it is.
Lloyd.
Or not for Bedworth Leisure Centre and building a new leisure centre, and that will happen under us. I don't know about the Conservatives, but definitely under us.
And about the arts and leisure, it's quite good that we're spending over £1 million on a feasibility study and work into our new leisure plan, but has that been accompanied by a risk register and a business plan? Because obviously one of the fears from previous council projects is we put over £1 million into producing this plan and we don't get a viable plan, or we find out the consultants say we need to spend another £500,000. So I'd be really pleased to know we've got a risk register attached to that spending, and we've got a business plan so we know exactly what the deliverables we get and how what milestones there are. Because obviously things run late as well. So if the £1 million plus is spent on 3 architects' designs for 3 different complexes, then we've got some deliverables to measure against. Thank you.
Risk assessment done on it, and with reference to the other monies, the over million, 1.16 million, I think it is. Well, we're waiting for the outcome of the consultation, which is going on now. That money and whatever we do with that money, with the different facilities across the borough, will be determined by that consultation, which ends at the end of this month. So I ask people again, please go on the consultation and get onto the website. You'll see it. It's be-nu.gov.uk. Go onto that and register your likes and dislikes of what you want, because that's what's going to drive how we spend that money. And yes, it will hopefully, it could be spent on one contractor doing all sites. It may be that one contractor does one site and one contractor does another site. That's what we've got to look at. At the end of the day, the money will be spent wisely. It will be spent the way the people want it spent, and that's through the consultation.
In relation to the report to the internal overview and scrutiny panel regarding car parking charges, I was rather alarmed in that report to see that we as a council pay the security firm that we use to collect the meter income. We pay that contractor over £50,000 a year to do that. Can the portfolio holder please inform me what steps his department are taking to look at ways that we may be able to reduce that cost, as I've been told that contract is up for renewal in the next few months?
A written answer to that, because I can't answer it off the top of my head at this present moment in time, but I would imagine if it's going out to contract, we will follow procurement procedures and look to bring the cost down.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do have 3 questions, and I'll read the 3 questions out just to try and save some time. Again, in relation to item 2A, could I ask Councillor Lloyd to confirm that, particularly after much lobbying by myself, that the Bedworth Leisure Centre will receive a priority onto a new build project? My second question, Madam Mayor, is to Councillor Jackson. I seem to see some signs this year, Councillor Jackson, of a better working relationship between us across the chamber. We shouldn't be enemies, we should be rivals, not enemies. And so there's some evidence this week, and I want to ask, does the leader agree that the working party on transforming Bedworth shouldn't be too difficult to work together, as the Conservatives have publicly supported the Labour proposals for Bedworth Town Centre? And my third question, Madam Mayor, over the page, and it's to Councillor Watkins in relation to the Johnson Road Bedworth proposals. And yes, the boundary goes down the middle of the road, although a lot of people within Bede Ward will benefit from them. So, does Councillor Watkins agree about the benefits that our communities will get from this project, particularly with us wanting to increase health and well-being of our residents? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Hancock. So I'll take them in turn. Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Hancock. Yes, it's the answer, really. Bedworth Leisure Centre is over 40 years old. I do apologise. This is the answer. Bedworth Leisure Centre is over 40 years old. It's showing its age. There's no doubt about it. And no matter how many sticking plasters we put over it, sometime it's going to fail. So it does need to be a priority and get built as soon as possible. And I'll cover the rest in the budget report.
All working parties or groups looking at town centre and regeneration ought to be conducted in a manner that talks our towns up, not down. Certainly the Transforming Nuneaton panel has worked cooperatively together with members from both the county and the borough. I'm delighted that the Tories are supporting Labour's proposals in regards to Bedworth, and I'm sure that we can have a mutually constructive member liaison group for that. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Cox. Yeah, I do believe that the money from the Johnson Road development will benefit the residents of the community in Bedworth, and we've got to do more to improve our health and well-being. So I think it'll be a great achievement for us all. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watkins.
Thank you. Item C, the empty homes. We had a very good OSC about this. It then went to Cabinet, and unfortunately the portfolio holder at the Cabinet didn't take on the suggestion of having a full-time empty homes officer. And one of the issues was the target we set. Well, our target is currently to get 12 empty homes back into use. Our part-time officer is currently getting 20 empty homes back into use. When we had a full-time empty homes officer, he got 40 homes back into use each year. So can I ask the portfolio holder for housing if he will look again at raising the target and getting 40 homes back into use, if possible, every year? Thank you.
Thank you. Perhaps you didn't hear me at the Cabinet meeting, but I did say that we would consider it, yeah. So that is what I said, and that will be on film. Thank you.
Raise the first 2 points that Councillor Hancock did in relation to the Bedworth Leisure Centre and also in relation to Bedworth Town Centre regeneration. I hear what he said earlier in the meeting about it is the consultation that will decide these things. But then he went on to say, absolutely, we will build the Bedworth Leisure Centre. Now, I don't personally disagree with that. I think we do need to regenerate the Bedworth Leisure Centre. But again, we're stuck here with a council that's saying, oh, we absolutely will do whatever comes out of the consultation. And then in the very next breath is saying, no, we've already predetermined what's going to happen. Now, it's likely that the consultation may support that, but we don't know. But it tends to undermine people's views about consultation. So can I ask, will, in respect to the Transforming the Bedworth Town Centre project, will that consultation really be taken seriously? Or are we again in danger of pushing ahead, throwing a lot of money at something without having listened to what residents really want? It is a concern. We have to make sure that consultations by the borough are seen as proper consultations, and they don't have a great reputation in the past. So I'd like some reassurance on that if I could.
Thank you.
Consultation and read it. There is a consultation that's out there, and if you haven't seen it, well, I'm sorry about that. We can't do any more than we're doing already. And there's a consultation going on what people want in the new complex at Bedworth Swimming Baths. That's what the consultation's about. Now, I'll take on board what you say. If the people of Bedworth or the people of Nuneaton come back and say, we don't want a new swimming pool in Bedworth, or we don't want a new swimming pool or a revamped swimming pool in Nuneaton, fine. But there's a fact out there that you're missing. And when we consulted on the different sports throughout the borough. We looked at all the water space across the borough, and there isn't enough. We need another 8 lanes in Nuneaton. We need another 2 lanes in Bedworth just to stand still. Now, if we don't build those leisure complexes, how can we change the obesity problems and the fitness problems that we've got in this side of Warwickshire? You look at other places of Warwickshire, we're far worse in the intercepts than other parts of Warwick. So, yes, you know, if the people say, we don't want one, well, fine. But I don't think they will somehow. Not from what I've seen anyway. My advice to you, councillor, is read all the consultation document online. You know where to get it. be-nu.gov.uk. Try it and see.
Thank you.
Look forward to using the new Bedworth Leisure Centre.
Could you ask your question, please, Councillor Evans?
Yes, I agree with the comments made by Councillor Hancock. So I, for one, look forward to working constructively alongside Councillor Hancock, Councillor Jackson, Councillor Gran and County Councillor Gilbert. In relation to this item, I'd be interested in knowing if the Leader of the Council has raised the Transforming Bedworth visioning document with her colleagues at the Combined Authority.
That we have such a successful relationship with the West Midlands Combined Authority, and I recall last year the Conservatives opposite proposed coming out of that very beneficial partnership. I'm hoping tonight that they've learnt the lessons from the last budget meeting, but of course, as and when it is appropriate, I will fight the good cause for Bedworth in the same way that I do for Nuneaton.
Councillor Golby.
I would like to point out page 65B. Actually, it's not anything to do with that, but if you want to have a look, it actually says Transforming Bedworth Cost Party Working Group proposed by the Conservatives, so let's just be clear on that one. The portfolio holder for Arts and Leisure has just referred to obesity and how we're going to fight it without Bedworth Leisure Centre. My specific request was to restore the recreation ground that is just off Cornish Crescent with a green gym, a measured mile, health and wellbeing facilities, and I was told that that couldn't happen. So that was what I wanted to use the 106 money for. I was told it couldn't happen because this Labour-led council is looking to build houses on it. So how are my residents going to benefit from outside space and green gym facilities that we can actually pay for with the 106 money from Arbury when it's been diverted to a maybe, maybe not, but we've already made the decision anyway because you've just stood up and told us that you have, facilities in Bedworth? I want a small local facility and I've been told no. Should the Conservatives take over, that decision will be reconsidered. I can guarantee you that. And you can push as many leaflets through doors as you want.
Councillor Golby, with everyone, this is questions only, not statements. Thank you. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Reid.
Sorry, Mrs. Mayor. Well, what a mouthful. You've been missed. That's all I'll say. You've been missed. It's nice to see you got your voice back. Development, all development, new development, brings green spaces, brings new facilities. You can't shake your head because the planning application hasn't even come in yet, so we don't know what's in the planning application. But in those planning applications for new build, there should be green areas and green spaces and parks, etc. So the people of Arbury will get it. Eventually they will get it when those developments come on stream. And it's rich that the councillor doesn't want to spend money building the Bedworth and Nuneaton leisure centres, because that's what we're talking about doing, is building new Bedworth leisure centre, possibly a new leisure centre or an extension to that leisure centre, for the future people of this borough as well as the existing people. You've heard how how difficult it is at the moment with water space within this borough, so we have to do something. It's rich. The councillor doesn't want to do that. She just wants it all spent in her patch. But the residents will use those facilities and other facilities which are in this borough. So I don't agree with what she's saying. There will be green spaces, there will be facilities for that area as development comes on stream.
More people waiting to ask questions. Is there anyone else who wants to add to the list before I close the debate after the next 5? Thank you. Councillor Graham.
Thank you. I'd like to ask, firstly, would the portfolio holder say that it's worth sacrificing Bedworth's floodplains and green belts in order to build a new leisure centre? Secondly, does he feel that lots of residents will take up the offer to queue up in lots of traffic on Newtown Road, School Lane and the A444 from Nuneaton in order to get there? And thirdly, would the leader of the council please put on record that the Transforming Bedworth project is a collaborative thing, because back in 2017, very early on as a county councillor, I had meetings with Izzy Seckham, Rachel Baccanet to get the ball rolling from our side. I'm sure that you had similar meetings from the Borough Council, and we're all on the same page here in trying to regenerate Bedworth. So can you please read some comments that it's a Labour proposal when it is in fact a cross-party proposal that the Conservatives have always supported and hopefully will soon be in a position of power to implement?
On the developments, if they are floodplains, if they're prone to flooding, and they can't resolve those issues, don't worry about it, councillor. The houses won't get built. If they can... Do you know what, Madam Mayor? I've not once interrupted. Just shows the arrogance of some people over there.
Thank you.
You know, I've not interrupted.
Councillor Lloyd, could you sit down a minute, please? I am not putting backwards and forwards across the chamber. There's been plenty of opportunities to ask your questions. You have just asked 3 questions, Councillor Graham, and I have 4 more speakers. So I would please ask you to at least show some respect when people are speaking. Councillor Lloyd. Did you hear what I am? Respect for people when they are speaking. Councillor Lloyd.
Nearly said, Mr. Mayor.
I am a Mr.
That will be the second mistake I've made tonight, which I'll correct the other mistake in a minute. Madam Mayor, I'm not going to dwell on it. You know, people will judge them as they are. As I was saying, Madam Mayor, if I've sat on planning for many, many years, and the member that asked the question sits on planning, and he knows if there's an area that floods and can't be built on because of the flooding, or the issues can't be resolved, don't worry about it, councillor, it ain't going to get built then. But I've got a sneaky feeling that the things that you're peddling ain't going to quite work out true when the actual plans come in. They said all this about Heath Road in Bedworth. They said it all about Smorrel Lane, where that area there, when they built the old woodlands, however, Silver Birch and all that had a river that run through it. Some people won't remember, I do, I used to play in it. And the New Balancing Lake and Bluebell Drive area. Oh, don't build them, it'll flood. It floods. They resolve the issue, it don't flood. Simple as that. I've not once, and I live off Smorrel Lane, have I seen Smorrel Lane flooded because of that lake. So, the answer to your question, if the issues can't be resolved through planning, then they won't get built on. As simple as that. So I wouldn't worry about it. And I can't remember what his other questions were because they were rambling.
Thank you. One of the other questions about the increased traffic on Newtown Road, Councillor Lloyd.
He's a county councillor. He needs to go and talk to the county council. They're the highway authority.
Visioning document was put together in a partnership, a very successful partnership between Nuneaton and Bedworth and Warwickshire County Council. Happy to state that very clearly.
Thank you.
Yeah. This is a reference to the Johnson Road. This is not a question, it's just this. I would like to just make a statement that I'm pleased that land on Johnson Road, which was old Ellsworth Sports Centre, will be developed. This brownfield site was eyesore on the corner of beautiful Dewsbury Drive and is dumping ground.
Councillor Pandare, could you ask your question, please?
It just, I'm saying that their labour is doing very good job, you know, that's, if you don't want to listen, that's okay.
Councillor Pandare, I made it absolutely clear that there were questions only, and that is why I have asked you to ask your question. And I do not appreciate everybody giggling and laughing whenever anyone from the other side of the chamber speak. Now, do you wish to...
It's not a question, it's just, I was saying that is just what they've done good thing, you know, that if I just compliment, if you don't want to listen, compliment, that time stop.
No. Councillor Condacore.
On the Westminster Combined Authority Climate Change paper, which is page 41, it talks about making the journey without leaving anyone behind. Obviously, some councils are doing really good programmes, £3 million, £4 million spending pledges. I think it's probably the leader. Does the leader sort of have help from the other councils and know where we are? Because so many of the other councils are making progress, and we seem to be one of those who are the left behind.
On the Climate Change Working Party, and that is our first step as a council to get some concrete recommendations that we can consider. I think it is fair to say that councils right across the West Midlands have different time frames for when they want to have a net zero carbon economy and so on. There are different time frames. There's no one size fits all. But actually, I do believe that the paper that the West Midlands Combined Authority produced on this particular topic is interesting. It is probably available online, but if anybody struggles finding that, I'm sure our officers will be able to find a link and forward to them.
Olby.
Arts and Leisure portfolio holder. Given that we are so desperately short of water lanes, or whatever it is that you called it before, was there any consideration to build an additional swimming pool facility on Arbury using the nearly £5 million that the Arbury development is going to generate, or was it instantly earmarked for Bedworth?
The cost wouldn't tally up because it's not just 5 million they want. You know, it's 20 million, and it has to be done in line with organisations like Sport England, or you don't get the funding. So that's the reason why we went for the option of building on existing sites. I'd just like to correct the mistake that hasn't been picked up, but I'm sure that I've made twice. The website I referred to earlier is be-nu.co.uk, not gov. Thank you.
Councillor Evans.
People do judges. That's why Craig Tracy got an 18,000 majority.
Councillor Evans, please, would you ask a question?
Yes, absolutely. So my question is with regards to the leisure feasibility study, something that Councillor Grant, it's in relation to what Councillor Grant raised. Councillor Lloyd said in his response, well, don't worry, if there's floodplains, they won't be built on. I'm just interested, as a Bedworth resident, did you visit the Bedworth woodlands on Sunday to visit properties which were flooded and gardens which were also flooded as well on Newtown Road due to the severe flooding? And if his opinion is don't worry, we won't build on the floodplains, why did he vote for a borough plan that included sites on floodplains?
Councillor...
Well, even though I'm not a local councillor for that area and I don't go up there, but my wife did and she had to turn back. So yes, I was aware because she gave it me in the ear roll. Thank you.
The item 9, the item 10, sorry, the Cabinet report. I am now moving to item 11, which is the election of Mayor and Deputy Mayor. Can I have in nominations for the office of Mayor for the municipal year 2020-21, please? Councillor Jackson.
Thank you. We give big long speeches. This is more of a technical nomination, and I would like to nominate Councillor Bill Hancock as Mayor for the year 2020-21.
Second of Councillor Hancock.
second that.
Councillor Phillips. Thank you. Are there any further? Councillor Jane Sargent.
Councillor Andrew Sargent, who happens to be my fabulous husband, and I would like to nominate him for mayor. Thank you.
A seconder for Councillor Sargent. Councillor Condacore, thank you. Sorry, I was having problems writing Sargent nominated by Sargent. And it was seconded, I believe, by Councillor Condacore. Thank you. Okay, yeah, I'm getting there. Are there any further nominations? Councillor Wilson.
Nominate Councillor Rob Tromans for the position of Mayor. The Constitution, Madam Mayor, says that usually the role of Mayor is a distinct one-time only role, honour for that person. Indeed, I believe I've seen that written in the Constitution before. It's usually a singular honour for the person to be nominated for Mayor. Whilst Councillor Hancock's has demonstrated good capabilities, I do not believe it is fundamentally fair to have someone occupy the office of Mayor 3 times when there are other councillors on this authority, in this chamber, who have put in a decent length of service and would do just as good a job, if perhaps not even better job, than Councillor Hancock's. Because ultimately, it shouldn't be the domain of one councillor. It is an honour that should be shared around this chamber. So I move Councillor Tromans.
Thank you.
I second Rob Tromans, and I think he'll be a very good mayor.
Thank you. Move to the vote. It is a show of hands. Could I see those in? Yeah, Okay, if you wish a recorded vote, I am taking all those in favour of Councillor Hancock's. Yeah.
It can only be 4. So they just have. I think what we'll have to do is, well, you have a choice. You can do it each one in turn. You can do 4. Or if you go through the list, and just say the name of the person you're voting for. That might be easier.
Okay. Just to confirm then, since a recorded vote has been called, I'm going to go through the list of councillor names. Rather than saying for or against, we could indicate which councillor you're voting for mayor. Is that clear? Okay. And just to be clear, then we have 3 nominations: Councillor Hancock's, Councillor A. Sargent and Councillor Tromans.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Councillor Beaumont.
Councillor Hancock's.
Councillor Brinley Edwards.
Councillor Tromans.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Tromans.
Councillor Croft.
Councillor Beaumont.
Councillor Daffern. Councillor Doherty. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Evans. Councillor Gazain is absent. Councillor Glass.
Councillor Hancock.
Councillor Golby.
Councillor Tromans.
Councillor Gran.
Councillor Tromans.
Councillor Gutteridge.
Councillor Tromans.
Councillor Hancox.
Councillor Bill Hancock.
Councillor Hocking. Councillor Jackson.
Councillor Hancock.
Councillor Condacore.
The wonderful Andrew Sargent.
Councillor Llewellyn-Nash.
Councillor Tromans.
Councillor Lloyd.
Councillor Hancock.
Councillor Longdon.
Councillor Hancock.
Councillor Pandair. Councillor Phillips.
Councillor Hancock.
Councillor Pomfret.
Councillor Hancock.
Councillor Rudkin. Councillor A. Sargent.
Councillor A. Sargent.
Councillor J. Sargent.
Councillor A. Sargent.
Councillor J. Shepherd. Councillor T. Shepherd. Councillor Smith.
Councillor Tromans.
Councillor Tandy.
Councillor Hancock's.
Councillor Tromans. Councillor Walmsley.
Councillor Tromans.
Councillor Watkins.
Councillor Hancock.
And Councillor Wilson.
The result was that Councillor Hancock has been declared as the mayor-elect for the year 2021. Thank you. We then move on in a similar fashion to nominations for deputy mayor, please. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Elliott.
I'll second that.
Okay, Councillor. Are there any further nominations? Councillor Wilson.
Councillor Brown, who has done a longer length of service and I believe is more deserving of the role of Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Is there a seconder for Councillor Brown? Councillor Evans.
For me personally, he's been quite a big mentor for me since I got involved on the council, so I think he's worthy of the position.
Okay. Well, we will do a similar process to...
I haven't called for recorded votes yet.
We will use a similar process that we did for the election of the mayor-elect.
Councillor Beaumont.
Councillor Elliott.
Councillor Brindley-Edwards.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Croft.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Duffin. Councillor Doherty. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Evans.
Brown.
Councillor Gazane is absent. Councillor Glass.
Councillor Elliott.
Councillor Golby. Councillor Gran.
Councillor Brown, of course.
Councillor Gutteridge.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Hancock.
Councillor Elliott.
Councillor Hocking. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Condacor.
Abstain.
Councillor Llewellyn Nash.
Councillor Damon Brown.
Councillor Lloyd.
Councillor Trish Elliott, because I think she's deserving.
Councillor Longdon.
Councillor Trish Elliott.
Councillor Pandair.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Phillips.
Councillor Elliott.
Councillor Pomfret.
Councillor Elliott.
Councillor Rudkin.
Councillor Elliott.
Councillor A. Sargent.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor J. Sargent.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor J. Shepherd. Councillor T. Shepherd. Councillor Smith.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Tandy.
Councillor Elliott.
Councillor Tromans.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Walmsley.
Councillor Brown.
Councillor Watkins.
Councillor Elliott.
And Councillor Wilson.
Councillor Brown. Agreed, abstained. You didn't know you were in the job.
Councillor Elliott has been declared mayor-elect for the year 1920-21. Right, we are now moving on to the agenda item 12. Recommendations from the Cabinet or other committees. A is the General Fund Budget and Capital Programme. Councillor Jackson, could I install Council's budget for 2020 and 21? And could I remind members that neither Councillor Jackson nor Councillor Wilson, should he wish to speak, will be timed for during their budget speeches.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would refer members to the addendum, to both the addendum as well as the council agenda. So there is an addendum everyone has received. It gives me great pleasure to present the Labour administration's budget to council this evening. A budget that aims high, a budget that puts our community's priorities first, and a budget that will always seek that continued improvement that we all demand. Firstly, I think it is important that we set our budget in context. Local government has faced years of cuts, years of austerity, and years of neglect. Over 60% cuts in our funding, additional pressures as people face the realities of benefit system changes, and government ministers who just don't get it. Homelessness has sadly increased significantly. We have seen huge budget pressures from increased demand for temporary accommodation. As Councillor David Reynard, the Local Government Association's housing spokesman, put it, he's a Conservative, by the way. Councils, and I quote, councils want to work with government to be able to prevent homelessness before it happens. But as a result of unprecedented funding pressures, they are becoming increasingly limited in what they can do. With adequate funding and powers, councils can boost efforts to prevent homelessness and get back to building the affordable homes our country needs. That from the LGA's housing spokesman, Conservative Councillor David Reynard. So I say to the government, give us the money we need to do the job required, and don't play politics saying you have increased our funding and in that statement include the additional council tax we can raise. This is local people's money and not the government's generosity. Think again about your decision to increase the cost of borrowing from the Public Works Loan Board, making it harder for us to do the bigger things we want to do to transform our communities. Reverse your decisions on benefit changes which cause such pain to local people. Context is important, Madam Mayor, but so is how we set about meeting these spending challenges. Here in Nuneaton and Bedworth, we have already looked at making ourselves more efficient, monitoring spending closely and cutting out waste. The budget presented tonight is based on reductions already agreed back in November of last year. We do not wait for a once-a-year opportunity to implement necessary changes. We seek continuous review. Under Labour, this council is committed to seeking major regeneration of Nuneaton and Bedworth town centres, making them fit for the future. Yes, we do want an excellent retail offer, but we acknowledge the need for other mixed uses to encourage people to come into our towns for longer. In Nuneaton, working with partners, we have the opportunity to gain up to £50 million in grants from government, and rest assured we are working very hard to maximise this opportunity. We have already been allocated £7.5 million from Coventry and Warwickshire Local Enterprise Partnership. We have received a grant offer of £1.175 million from the West Midlands Combined Authority, as well as some feasibility monies in relation to the Townsdale and High Streets funds of over £300,000. In Bedworth, we are currently consulting on a new vision. To this end, we propose setting aside £100,000 to enable works to start. And as I have repeatedly stated, we will be putting in a bid to government in the next round of High Streets funding. Not hollow promises, but clear intent. We have listened hard to what the public has said. You wanted our town centres improving, and that is exactly what we plan to do. We are also consulting on our new leisure strategy, which aims to provide a brand new swimming pool in Bedworth, and either a new or improved Pingleswoon baths in Nuneaton. We are proposing setting aside over £1 million to start this programme, and tonight we are proposing another £50,000 to provide further support to the feasibility work. But our plans do not stop there. We want to create new tennis courts in Bedworth's Miners Welfare Park, a replacement running track at Pingles, as well as seeking to create key leisure sporting hubs at Balkington Pavilion, Paulsland, Heatley Pavilion, Kersley and Stockingford community centres, bringing new opportunities for football, cricket, netball, etc. You said you wanted better leisure facilities, and our plans aim to deliver. Removing graffiti and fly tipping has to be a priority. We are proposing an extra £39,000 to employ environmental quality operatives, who will also do river and watercourse clearance. Making Nuneaton and Bedworth look its best is the right thing to do, and we will do it. We have protected frontline services, continued to fund free swimming for young people and pensioners, maintained our beautiful parks, an outstanding museum, safe car parks, CCTV, invested in our town centres with much more to come. This is a budget that shouts loud for Nuneaton and Bedworth, talks our town centres up and not down, and importantly, Madam Mayor, a budget that is sustainable going forward. This is not a budget that seeks to make short-term political points. It is a budget set to deliver for the long term. There will be no increase charges for parking, market rents, pitch hire or bulky refuse collection. Funding of the vital work the voluntary sector do will continue at the same level as last year, as we know the service they provide are in great demand. I therefore move that Council agree the recommendations as amended by Cabinet for approval. In conclusion, this is a budget fit for the future, a budget that aims high, that reflects our community's priorities, while always conscious that sound financial management is imperative.
For the budget.
Yes, Madam Mayor. Oh, sir.
Thank you.
It gives me great pleasure to propose the Conservative alternative budget proposals tonight. The budget, thank you, that we are putting forward yet again shows that it is the Conservative Party in Nuneaton and Bedworth that has the vision, ambition and aspiration to move our borough forward. We can just look around us to contrast this with 44 years of Labour decline and wasted opportunities that means residents are so concerned with the future of our community. Our budget is a doorstep budget. Instead of telling people what is best for them, we have listened to the heartfelt concerns of residents across Nuneaton and Bedworth informing our ideas for the budget proposals that we are putting forward tonight. We have focused on the people's priorities to put forward a vision that reflects what the views and challenges faced by our communities are. The future of our town centres is a huge concern for people across Nuneaton and Bedworth. It is this Conservative government, and it's a fact that the leader wishes to ignore, it is the Conservative government that is investing up to £50 million to transform Nuneaton, not just some nebulous partners, the Conservative government. With Labour's track record, they cannot be trusted to see this project through either on time or on budget. Gresham Road springs to mind. Oh, well, yes. And they are not taking advantage of opportunities that we have within our control to make a difference now. So we will implement a grant scheme for small and medium businesses to apply for funding to make improvements to the shop fronts that shoppers and traders see day in and day out, putting real money onto our high streets now and making a difference to our towns. We recognise that keeping our town centres clean gives residents a sense of pride in our borough. Therefore, we have a plan to ensure that all three
so
centres...
I take debate on... Sorry, Councillor. I apologise.
Nuneaton, Bedworth and Bulkington get the tender loving care they deserve and have 2 deep cleans every year. Supporting businesses and traders is vital to keeping our economy vibrant and healthy. Christmas is the time of year when it can make or break a business. So we are budgeting for the Sundays in the run-up to this Christmas to be free to park in our borough. This budget puts shoppers, businesses and traders first. And Bedworth is not forgotten under the Conservatives either. We were putting the case for a transforming Bedworth package in this chamber long before Labour even thought up the idea. In this chamber, every time I have mentioned transforming Nuneaton, in the same breath I have said we will support transforming Bedworth too. Let us not forget, and it's in the minutes tonight, it is the Conservatives who put forward a motion for transforming Bedworth only a few months ago. The party opposite may try to rewrite history, but the record shows that they were behind the curve and behind where the residents of Bedworth need this council to be. We have budgeted £50,000 right here and now in a Transforming Bedworth Preparation Fund. This is to be used for the consultancy and feasibility work necessary to turn ambition into reality. Labour have no credibility and no plan to take Transforming Bedworth forward, save for a nebulous promise of a budget without action. It is the party on this side of the chamber that has a plan and will deliver for Bedworth. Across Nuneaton and Bedworth, residents are rightly angry with Labour for breaking their promise to the residents of the borough in the last election. They promised not to introduce a green bin tax. Yet within a few months of them clinging on to power, they turned their back on their promises and introduced a green bin tax. Unlike Labour, we haven't lied to the public over the green bin tax. Instead, we have listened. And what we have heard loud and clear is that it is a deeply unfair and unpopular tax. In our budget, we will cut this tax by 25% and reduce the tax to £30. We wish we could reduce it further, and that remains our ambition. But the residents of Nuneaton and Bedworth deserve better than the deceit that the present administration has shown. Crime and grime is an issue that many residents have said they have concerns about. Whereas the Labour budget offers little, our budget proposals offer a real plan to tackle the nuisance of illegal fly tipping within our borough. As local councillors, I am sure we can easily identify several sites around our wards where there are hotspots affected by fly tipping. Our budget puts forward a dedicated fly tipping officer to tackle illegal fly tipping across Nuneaton and Bedworth. And we will give them the tools to do the job by investing in 6 additional mobile CCTV cameras that can be deployed around our borough to deter and catch criminals in the act. This is a real plan with real resources to deal with illegal fly tipping. Crime and antisocial behaviour are also challenges across our borough where residents deserve action from this council. 12 years ago, the last Conservative administration listened to the voice of residents and purchased 10 additional Domehawk, although they're now called Nomad, cameras to ensure there were 17 cameras available at any one time. These have proven popular and highly effective at deterring antisocial behaviour in our communities and tackling criminals on our streets. We will now finish the job and purchase an additional 10 Nomad cameras to work in partnership with the police to keep our residents safe and protect our communities. Again, this is another real plan with real resources from the Conservatives. In conclusion, Madam Mayor, this is a budget from the Conservatives that offers the vision, ambition and aspiration to move our borough forward. Under the Conservatives, we will fight for the future of our town centres, Nuneaton, Bedworth and Bulkington. Under the Conservatives, we will cut Labour's unfair green bin tax that hits the poorest in our society the hardest. Under the Conservatives, we have a plan to tackle grime, and we have a plan to tackle crime. Or with Labour, we can have yet more decline. I so move the recommendation, Madam Mayor.
Is there a seconder, please? Okay. A debate, and first of all we will be discussing the budget that Councillor Wilson has moved. And I would remind members we are discussing that budget and not any other budget. Right, I saw a sea of hands go up. Give it just for now. Councillor Brown.
It's not what it was. Thank you, Madam Mayor. The Conservative budget, it sets out our commitments to improve services and to tackle specific issues within this borough. It's the things that residents raise most frequently on the doorsteps and in surveys. Well, apart from the borough plan, the houses that shouldn't be built, the floodplains and so on and so forth. But green bin charge comes up, it's one of the main things that comes up. We're committed to reducing it because residents think it costs too much and it penalises the poor most. Our budget cuts it, and if we take control in May, we'll try to do it again in future. We think it's wrong to charge any more than is absolutely necessary for this service and for something that actually helps the environment. Residents should not be penalised for doing the right thing. Fly tipping, that comes up time and time again. It's another massive concern for residents who want to live in a borough that's not blighted by fly tipping. Fly tipping, after all, is another form of antisocial behaviour. It costs more to collect it than it does if it was disposed of properly. Now, our officers, Glenn McCrandle and his team, are fantastic at dealing with. He must get fed up with the number of emails he gets from me asking him to tackle specific issues, and he does it with good grace and he gets it done. But they need help. We need help to deter people from dumping their rubbish in the first place. And as we've already heard, every ward, I think we could all find places where this happens, and we'd like to see something done. So that's why I've proposed more cameras to be available to tackle this issue. If we can spot people doing it, we can identify the people, we can identify the vehicles, we can take action against it. Too often there's no evidence and it's too difficult to do. So specific problem, specific solution. Cleaner town centres. Scruffy town centres. People don't like going to them. It's bad for business, it's bad for shoppers. We want to encourage businesses to come to this borough. We want to encourage shoppers to spend their money here. And it's more likely to happen if the place is clean and tidy. Now, we've heard about transforming Nuneaton, we've heard about transforming Bedworth. These are things for the future. This is a plan to do something in the here and now. All that time until the transforming programmes come on stream and something happens. So it's a good idea, specific problem, specific answer. Same with the plan for the shop fronts. Local businesses need incentives to keep themselves going. It just makes them brighten the place up, makes the place look more attractive, and it's something that can get competing against each of them, bidding for funding. It's a great idea. Let's do it. It works elsewhere. So it's the same with car parking charges. We'd like to encourage people to come into town. So on the budget tonight, we've got massive sums to be spent on specific projects. As opposed to what? 100,000 that you might spend on some works in Bedworth somewhere, but we're not quite sure what. I'd much rather see a plan that says we'll put £50,000 into a specific visioning programme to make sure that the vision that we deliver is the right one in the first place. Let's get the consultation, the designs and what we want in both towns done correctly. Then we build what's necessary and we don't end up regretting it later after we've wasted more money. So I would absolutely recommend this budget, the one that sets out to do specifics in the right way for the future of the borough, to answer the things that people have told us matter to them. I utterly recommend this book. Thank you.
Councillor Walmsley.
At the start of this process, actually, I'd like to pass my sincere thanks to Councillor Wilson and also to Councillor Golby
As I know, having worked on the peripheries of this for a number of years now, budget setting times and budget proposal times are never easy. And I, speaking only to the Conservative motion at the moment, I'm sure I'll come to the leader later on. But I know that no budget is easy for any party to go through. There are hours and hours and hours of preparations and work undertaken, not just by the councillors but also the officers to cost the ideas and to come up and to go through those. So first of all, my gratitude has got to go to those and the team of officers as well. But also secondly, my gratitude has to go to Councillor Golby and Councillor Wilson for actually putting vision, ambition and aspiration at the absolute heart of our shadow budget in a move to fight for our town centres, in a move to reverse and cut the deeply unfair Labour's deeply unfair green bin tax, and also tackling crime and tackling grime across our borough, something that actually are key. And as Councillor Brown has already said very clearly, these are issues which come up very regularly on the doorstep, which come up very regularly from our residents, which are issues which they really want to see addressed. And I'm very glad that the Conservative proposals do just that. In particular, one of my favourite items, which I know was a suggestion and a little brainchild of a colleague of mine, of Councillor Croft, has to be looking at applicable grants for small and medium-sized businesses to actually help improve and tidy up some of our shop fronts across the town centre. Because as we know, and as psychology shows, actually, as places look better, be that more tidy, so improved litter, so through the fly tipping elements, be that with less grime, as we see with our biannually deep cleans of our town centres, our 3 town centres, be that as the shop fronts and the whole town becomes more aesthetically pleasing, be that in the short term with some of these shop front grants, or be that in the long term as these transforming Bedworth and Nuneaton proposals and longer terms come online, that actually that begins to rejuvenate an increased sense of pride, borough pride in our borough. And that is something that has been severely lacking over the last few years. As we see all these issues that the Conservatives are now trying to tackle being largely ignored and swept under the carpet. And I am sincerely pleased to see that what we have here is a budget which champions what residents want to see from us. A budget which champions the hard-working taxpayer. A budget which seeks to reduce the burden on their pocket by actually first looking at ourselves, shining light into our own council finances, doing things better so we can actually begin to make cuts. Now, I, for one, absolutely welcome, hopefully in May, when the Conservatives are controlled and are on that side, where we continue to make some real change and to make sure that actually our residents, their pounds are being spent in as absolutely effective way as possible. Because this is not council money. This is not council tax money. Indeed, it's not even government money. This money comes from every citizen. Every citizen in our country pays their tax, council tax, income taxes, national insurance taxes, and all of that heavy burden, that heavy burden which hard-working taxpayers have to pay, should be spent wisely, should not be wasted, as it has been done for many, many years. As we already know, the failings, Gresham Road, Climbing Wall, we can list them. They are a huge list, and they cost millions of pounds to this council, and ultimately millions of pounds which could have been spent on other services for our residents. Millions of pounds which could have gone to ensuring that we didn't have to put the green bin tax in, or Labour didn't have to put their green bin tax in the first place. That is something that I truly believe in. That is why I'm a Conservative. I want to see better spending of the public's money. And that, Madam Mayor, is exactly what the Conservative proposals put forward by Councillor Wilson tonight absolutely do. Thank you.
Councillor Evans.
Speak in favour of the Conservative amendment. And before I talk about the content, I want to speak briefly about the backdrop of how we've had to present our budget this evening. And it's a backdrop of serious financial mismanagement over 44 years. £2.5 million overspend at Gresham Road. The climbing tower. Millions as a direct subsidy to the Civic Hall, just to balance the books. That is what we're having to present our budget in front of tonight. Serious financial mismanagement. But I'd like to go on record in thanking Councillor Wilson for the budget that he's proposed tonight, because I think he's done a fantastic job under the circumstances. As well as Councillor Golby, of course. Now I'll go on to the content. This is a budget that very much talks up the people's priorities in Nuneaton and Bedworth. Now, I canvass a lot of doors in Bedworth, as I'm sure members will know. And there's four things, rather successfully I would add, and there's four things that constantly come up in Bedworth. Labour's borough plan, Labour's green bin tax, fly tipping, and Labour's continuous mismanagement of Bedworth town centre under years of decline. And first of all, I'm a very proud low-tax Conservative. And I'm proud that this evening we're presenting a budget that is slashing the green bin tax by 25%. I'm proud that it's this side of the House that is allowing the council, potentially, if it's voted on tonight, to put more money into people's back pockets so they can go back into our local economy and spend their hard-earned money. I'm absolutely delighted that we've been able to slash the green bin tax. And one of the things that we will do when we take control in 80 days' time is we will look as well to work alongside local garden centres about potentially introducing discounts for those who take on the potential £30 green bin charge. Talking about town centres, I'm proud that it's this side of the House that is going to put in a direct £141,000 cash injection into Bedworth Town Centre and the Nuneaton Town Centre. Now, in comparison to the other side of the House, we actually know what we want to do with the town centres and where we want to spend the money. And I have to say, the Transforming Bedworth consultation has been absolutely dire. You actually if you talk to my residents in the Slough ward, I'd say canvassing, maybe 1 in 10 have probably heard about it. Like, literally no one has heard about it. So if we're going to start off, we've got to start off right. And that is why I think we have to restart the consultation over again. And one of the things, as the youngest councillor on this authority, one of the things I'm passionate about is I want us to go into Nicholas Chamberlain.
I understand that
5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Chamberlain, Ash Green, the local primary schools, because we need to know what the next generation of Bedworth residents want for their town. I'm pleased that after Councillor Croft's lobbying following the Roger Scruton report, that we're putting in this allowance for local shopkeepers to bid for towards shop fronts. I think that's a very good idea. And also, Councillor Hancock's. You talk a lot about block paving in Bedworth Town Centre, and rightfully so. And that's why I'm pleased today, in our budget, that we've committed to doing 2 deep cleans of Bedworth Town Centre, All Saints Square, in the next financial year. If you vote for this tonight, of course. The other thing is fly tipping. And, you constantly go down Rabbit Lane, one of the areas, Councillor Lloyd, that floods regularly. 5 minutes?
5 minutes,
Oh, dear.
yes.
Well, I'd ask people to vote for this. This is Boris Johnson's One Nation Conservatism in action. Let's get it through.
Councillor Graham. Councillor Croft.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, I don't know what order to bring this all up in, but I'd like to speak as to why I believe that this budget is the ideal and perfect budget for my constituents. First of all, I'd like to go into the introduction of what have been referred to now as cheap as chips nomad cameras, which used to be a lot more expensive, But now that the price has come down, it's a perfect opportunity to get some as a long-term investment to give residents an extra feeling of security in the borough. And secondly, I'd like to bring up the recruitment of a fly tipping officer as well as 6 cameras in order to catch the people while they're at it, because the biggest problem with fly tipping is that it keeps happening, and it keeps happening in the same areas. And I've got to say, I'd like to echo what Councillor Brown has said, because Glenn McGrandle, one of our officers, he's frankly superheroic, and I think that it's time that we introduce somebody new to help get this job done, so that he doesn't have to be the vigilante of fly tipping on Woodlands Road anymore. We've got fly tipping all over Bedworth, and they're usually in the same spot, so maybe once a few people get caught, that problem will at last be solved. Put something else down here about that. I'd say that this budget is consistent as well with our values and what we've established over the last few years. People have voted for what we stand for in Bedworth in 4 times in the last 4 years, and hopefully will continue to do so. And I think that establishes a pattern that people like it when we say we're going to regenerate Bedworth Town Centre. They trust that we will be able to deliver it, as opposed to a Labour group that has shown no interest in it until this year, when they're hanging on by 1 seat. I don't know if that's a coincidence or not, but we'll have to wait and see about that. The parking days and run up to Christmas haven't heard mentioned yet, but that's crucial, because as we're trying to attract investors into Bedworth and Nuneaton, we will want to make it as easy as possible for people to shop, and we'll want to increase the footfall. And by bringing in a scheme to help businesses regenerate their storefronts in front of them, that's a great way to start regenerating Bedworth, because potential investors will be coming into the town. They'll be seeing how good the town centre looks, and they'll be so impressed by the shop fronts that they'll want a shop front of their own in the transformed Bedworth. And I believe that only a pro-business party can get this done at the council. So whether you vote for this tonight or not, it doesn't really matter, because the public will be able to choose between our budgets a couple of months from now. And even if we make a decision against our budget tonight, that could well be overturned by the voters a couple of months from now.
Councillor Croft.
I'll echo what I said last year. This budget sends a very clear signal to the people of this borough that help is on its way and hope is on the horizon. It kickstarts the revival of our town centres after years of decay and decline. It will clean up our towns, washing away the grime and the dirt that have built up over these last 10 years, coincidentally. It cuts an unnecessary and regressive tax that hits the poorest hardest, and it leaves more money in the pockets of the people. It takes concrete steps to fight crime, antisocial behaviour, to protect those same people and help them and their families feel safe. Now, the issue at the moment in local politics across the country, but especially here, is that our town centres are in crisis. They're trapped in a vicious circle. The retail market has changed, charges and costs were too high, footfall has declined, shops have closed, the town is neglected, it decays, so footfall declines even further. It doesn't have to be like that, though, because if you look at our neighbours in places like Hinckley and Rugby, and if you look at the potential in Nuneaton, if you look out into Nuneaton, you've got lots of space, you've got a large population of possible customers, you've got very good transport links, and you've got these civic and commercial buildings which point to a very proud history and a great heritage. We can recapture that, but we need to have the right policies, and we need the right mix of retail and entertainment and food and tourism in the offer. Now, we've long supported a business improvement district, and we've definitely supported transforming Nuneaton and transforming Bedworth. That's why we're committing to fund this strategic plan for transforming Bedworth tonight, that will actually get real results, is specific. But we can't wait on consultations and projects that are going to come online in years or even decades. We need immediate action. And that's why we're announcing that we would immediately commit to a grant scheme to enhance businesses and shop fronts in the town centres. That has 2 effects. Firstly, it gives a bit of extra support to our businesses and our shopkeepers in tough times, and because it's a grant scheme, they take the lead in preparation for the Business Improvement District coming in. Secondly, it improves the visual environment of the town. We want to attract more customers, we want to attract more visitors, but to do that we need beauty, not ugliness. We've got some great heritage here, so let's show it off. We don't have to settle for drudgery. Let's have a bit of civic pride, and that'll help us do it. And best of all, this scheme is for the whole borough, both towns and a very large village. It doesn't show any favouritism to anybody, because after all, we are united to achieve, and we wouldn't dream of bunging a load of money just to one part of the borough, would we? And then there's the car parking. We keep saying, we say it every time, that it's basic economics that if you charge more, you will get less take-up. We've not been listened to, so we will have to demonstrate how economics works. So that's why we're introducing the free car parking charge days in the run-up to Christmas. And then we'll see what happens to the footfall. That will demonstrate it. We believe that people ought to be able to keep more of their own money, especially when it comes to a regressive green bin tax that's priced the poorest out of a service. That's why we're going to cut it by £10 in this shadow budget, and that would just be the start under a Conservative administration. We won't achieve economic revival unless we clean up our towns as well, clear away the litter, the grime, make them attractive places to visit. That's why we're going to deep clean our town centres in this and that's why it's so important in this shadow budget. Cleanliness will make the borough better for visitors, and it will make it a much nicer place to live for those who already live here. Fly tipping hotspots are starting to be a huge problem. I think all ward councillors have had a problem with that. I know I have. So our policy is twofold. First of all, the dedicated fly tipping staff that we would hire will be able to act much quicker to clean up this problem. And secondly, the cameras we'll invest in will catch the worst offenders, and it'll deter others in future. So we've got faster cure and stronger prevention, which is a good way to deal with this problem. And remember, this shadow budget has been drawn up under the constraints imposed by the current leadership. Just think what we could do with the new homes bonus. Hinckley and Bosworth and Rugby have all used that money for improving general fund policies, and a Conservative control council would do the same. There's your money. There's the money you need. That change your policy on the new homes bonus and you will have the money. That's our vision. One borough. One borough where all of our people can live in clean, green, a beautiful place. People choosing to spend their time in a vibrant town centres, resurrected to their former glory, reflecting their heritage, not just soulless mediocrity, which is what we have at the moment. People enjoying economic opportunity and finding jobs in a revived and dynamic local economy. My time having expired, Madam Mayor, I'll say that's our vision, we're pledged to it, and it would just be the start. Thank you.
Councillor Conical.
I spoke on the Labour budget when it went to the Cabinet last week. Just referring to the Conservative budget now, there's quite a few things of merit in there. Like all these things, they aren't black and white. This side doesn't have all the answers, that side's got all the mistakes. So I particularly do like the action on fly tipping. It's a massive pity that the government doesn't change the law so that those officers can be funded from fines from the people who are fly tipping, because it's a massive scourge. It's commercially done, and those people should be bearing a almighty cost. Because you just go down Wellington Road, and I'm sure the other councils have bits in there. The lay-bys just regularly get refilled with fly tipping. We really need to stop this. The cameras are good, the officers are good, but we also need to get the funding working right. I also like the £30 green bin charge, because it more or less reflects what the cost is. Last year, the Tories considered about a £10 charge, which actually doesn't fully fund running the service. So £30 is one of these compromises. You're never going to make everyone happy. Someone's always subsidising or cross-subsidising. But £30 is an awful lot more sensible charge than £40. People should be composting at home if they can. The poorest people aren't always the ones who go on. So I don't want to spending large sums of council money making the charge ridiculously low. I think I said when it came in about £26 was a sensible charge. So I wouldn't moan at £40. Unfortunately, I can't totally support the Conservative budget. There's quite a lot of cuts in here that I do not support. Obviously, some of the things I do. One of the things we need to get sorted is the continuous overspend on the Mayor's civic car. For the civic hall, we really need to make the bar and food profitable. I'm not sure about reducing our opening hours. I think we need to look far more at actually making it entrepreneur-led food and drink outlets tied in. And so I'm about to die, so I think I'll keep it short. But it's a great pity that the two budgets aren't sort of work like they do at the county, where they're all presented a week early and people can actually sort of cherry pick and discuss, and we actually get somewhere which is less confrontational. Because, I say, there are things in the Conservative budget that I would vote for, but there's also things that I wouldn't vote for, particularly on the privatisation and some of the cuts to the arts grants and things. I know there's only 13 Tories here, so I don't need to stay for the vote because we know what's going to go on. But I do hope that things I say are taken on board in later years. And the final ask probably is to look at the loss of our drainage engineer. We used to have a land drainage engineer. You know, someone who looks after areas, you make sure the ditches are working, commenting on planning applications. We seem to not have a land drainage engineer now, which seems absolutely mad considering the climate change agenda. There's nothing in either budget on climate change. And really, when you're doing that, drainage, in terms of local borough council, is one of the really sort of top things that climate change impact has. I'm actually going to go home now, so have a lovely meeting. I know how the outcome will be, I would like this budget process to get better and better. I think it's less confrontational than last year. I think there's some good things in this budget. I spoke on Labour's budget last week, and yeah, maybe next year, when there's a hung council, we can actually have a negotiation on what bits are in and what bits are out. Good night, everyone. Thank you.
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 speakers, and then I intend to move to the proposal that was moved by Councillor Jackson. Councillor Lloyd. I move to the proposal. Go on, sorry.
Sorry, Madam Mayor. I'm going to start. I'm not going to be lectured by the opposition on things like Gresham Road, etc. I ain't going to do it. No, at the end of the day, you look at the county, the Conservative alternatives that are run by the Conservatives, you know, and they talk about taxpayers having to pay the bill. Oh, Bermuda Bridge, and dare I say HS2, but we'll leave that. Madam Mayor, this budget here, and I've only just flicked through it, and that's all I am going to do, because a number of years ago, it was agreed that we would show our budget 10 days, week, whatever, as long as it was before. So we rearranged council for the budget so the opposition could see what our budget was. It sounds highly unfair when we show our budget over a week before and they drop it on us in a night. I'm sorry, as far as I'm concerned, this is done on the back of a fag packet. That's all I can say. You're looking at the leisure on the front page, removal of the following growth items. £50,000 from the leisure feasibility consultancy. So that's gone down from 100 to 50,000. Then transforming Bedworth. From what I can make out, they're going to remove that and change it to £50,000. So they all talk about Bedworth and talking Bedworth up, but they're taking £50,000 away from Bedworth. Madam Mayor, I'm not going to speak any longer on this because I don't think it warrants it. At the end of the day, as I say, I've just been dropped that at the meeting, not before the meeting. They've made big plays in the past. Certainly Councillor Wilson has, on many occasions, about it's not fair, the county show theirs a week before and we don't get to see it. Madam Mayor, he has said it on numerous occasions and so have his colleagues. Now, we get this bounced on us on a night. As far as I'm concerned, if they're bouncing something like that on the night, it's something that needs to be gone over completely and scrutinised. And I haven't got the time to do that, so I shall vote against this rubbish.
Councillor had a point of personal information.
For a start, if Councillor Lloyd wishes to take issue with being bounced on the night, then he should spend 44 years looking at previous Labour budgets when we've had nothing but that. Secondly, I think saying that it's on the back of a fag packet is deeply disrespectful to the hard-working officers who have put a lot of time and effort into helping us put our budget plans together. And I know Craig and Simone in particular have worked their socks off trying to help us. In fact, because of the last-minute changes that they made to their budget about 3 days ago, our budget recommendations were delayed. And finally, if he wants to talk about releasing budgets early, I did release my budget early last year, Madam Mayor. I invited everyone. There are 17 Labour councillors. Guess how many turned up? 0. So if he wants to talk about playing fair, get your facts right first.
Order, Madam Mayor.
Who was that? I'm sorry, no. Okay. Okay, if I'm allowing yours, I will allow Councillor Lloyd's point of order. Councillor Evans.
On the Cabinet meeting, I do actually no, it's a point of order actually, because it's a question of legality.
Well, which point of order is it then, Councillor Evans?
It's in relation to the Constitution about council setting legal budgets. At the most recent Cabinet meeting, Councillor Lloyd made a statement that the amendment last year was illegal. Could I ask the Leader of the Council what investigations have took place in the legal department?
Councillor, this is not a point of order on the debate we are currently talking about. You are referring to a comment that was made at a previous meeting, so you will need to find somewhere different to ask that question.
I'll talk about it later, it's fine.
Not you. Councillor Phillips.
Yes. Thank you very much. We've got this, but there we go. Basically, just scanning through it, the big thing that happens is that, from my point of view, why the change of heart on the West Midlands Combined Authority? Last year it was in your budget to cut it by £25,000. This year it isn't mentioned. You're quite happy, obviously, then to pay the £25,000 this year for membership of the West Midlands Combined Authority. Other than that, this is still basically the same as last year. Reduction in the arts development budget, reduced public convenience salary budgets by 1 full-time employee, ceased publication In Touch. Last year it was 25,000. This year you've got it down to 15,000. It's a bit strange, savings difference there. A savings target across all back office functions by not filling posts, just the same as last year. Transfer operation of the museum, just the same as last year. Cuts in the Mayor's budget, Tory cut. Tory cut. It's always the same. Close the Civic Court Monday and Tuesday this time. It was only Monday, I think, last time. You know, so there's a step going forward for closing it properly. All the while. Close the museum for 1 additional day, just the same as last year. Now, I often wonder, what do people who live in mobile homes ever do to you lot? You're going to put it up by £5 a week again. You know, to raise 18,000 on the back of people that live in mobile homes. Why does this keep coming back all the while? £5. That's a lot of money per week. Apply a competitive tendering process to the refuse. Well, you've always wanted to get the bins out to tender anyway. So that's consistent. That's something you do every year. Apply a reduction in the special responsibility allowances. That's new. That's new. Fair enough. I'm interested in a change there. A reduction in the green bin charge. A tax, apparently. It's a service we provide. People are able to pay for that service or not. It's a real grown-up world out there. Some things you can't keep giving away for nothing. How come?
Councillor Phillips, could you sit down one moment, please? I have already once. I am not going to have constant interruptions when a person is speaking. You were not interrupted when you were speaking. I would be grateful if you would have the same respect for other speakers. Councillor Phillips.
Thank you anyway. Much more to say, that is. Anyway, So there's a lot of consistency here, job losses, outsourcing, you know. And last year, the way you run your budget, last year, you were singing and dancing about the green bin service, as I call it, getting it down to £12.50 or £12.80. This year you've put it up to 30 quid in your budget. If your budget was so good last year, why change it? It's your budget. You've gone up from £12.80 in your budget to £30. I've got no more to say. I shan't be supporting their recommendation.
Thank you. Sorry.
Yeah. There's a wee bit of internal, whilst you're whispering behind the chair there, we can actually hear you. So I don't know whether there's a microphone on or not.
Sorry, it's mine.
But we can actually hear what you're whispering.
Okay.
I just thought I'd say that.
I apologise.
trying to be helpful as usual. Looking at the Tory budget, at least the Tories are consistent, and they're attacking Bedworth. I can't figure out why this is. Councillor Lloyd was wrong when he said it was £50,000 reduction. It's £97,000 reduction, because it's 47,000 saving from the jewel in the Borough Crown, the Civic Hall. The Civic Hall has always been a target for the Tories. Always been a target for the Tories as long as the Civic Hall has been there. So I'm just saying to people now, the Tories, it's the same as councillors were saying before, it's same old, same old. The price of everything and the value of absolutely nothing.
Thank you, Councillor Glass. Did you wish to speak, Councillor Pomfret?
No.
Thank you. Councillor Elliott.
Madam Mayor, I'm almost reluctant to stand up and speak, because I normally get shouted down or laughed at, as has just been demonstrated, but I'll give it a go. There's been some sound bites this evening. Heard things like pride in our borough, which is lovely. We have pride in the borough. The implication is that we don't, but they're transforming Nuneaton's transforming Bedworth. The new consultation clearly demonstrates that. I also hear talk of people's priorities. Help is on the way and hope is on the horizon. But I see no help and no hope to address the growing gulf between the most deprived areas in the borough. In fact, we have one of the wards that's the most deprived in the whole of Warwickshire in Nuneaton, where 1 in 2 children live in poverty. You talk of slashing the green bin tax. What hope does that give to families living in poverty? There's one family in Nuneaton, I understand, that has 7 green bins. It's really nice that they'll get a reduction. But what about those families relying on food banks? What about those families picking up the slack of all the austerity? I see here cuts, lots of cuts to back office functions. I was looking at the Joseph Rowntree Foundation today. It quotes that local authority staff and services face unsustainable stress. Let's give them more cuts. Funding has fallen in real terms in the most deprived communities by £220 per head, but only £40 per head in the most affluent areas. What does this budget do to address this widening gulf in inequality between the deprived areas and the affluent areas? There's no help on the way in this budget. Please don't vote for it.
Right. Councillor Golby, I didn't hear you reserve your right to speak.
She did, but she didn't.
Well, if you did, could you... I don't have any more speakers. Do you want to speak now, please?
So, it's a grown-up world, apparently. So it's nice to see that the penny's actually dropping, and we've got to cut our cloth accordingly. I'll go through and answer a couple of issues that have been raised. First and foremost, we know the cost of everything and the value of nothing. Well, the value of an empty building is £47,000, which is why we're actually taking it out of the budget and suggesting that the Civic Hall needs to be mothballed for the 2 days a week, that nobody's actually in it. So there's a cost for you. The fees and charges, £27 a week, is actually officer recommended by the senior officers as to put us in a parity level with other areas. It's actually still below what other areas charge, but that was an officer recommendation. So I suggest you direct any further queries in that respect to the officers regarding that one. The savings provided by the one full-time, reduced public conveniences salary by one full-time employment. Well, that's because you've actually shut the toilets. There's no toilets for them to clean, but we're still paying for somebody. You haven't reduced the staff in line with the amount of public conveniences you've taken out. So we have to do that because it makes sense. We've got one in Bedworth and one in Nuneaton, and there is no reason why that is not actually good fiscal sound planning, because you've obviously not seen beyond the end of your nose of closing the toilets. The green bins, interestingly, you're saying about us charging £12.50. Well, we did. We got our budget to that last year. We can't do it this year because of all the spend that's happened, and £30 is the best we can do. But we've put it in our budget. You could put it in your budget too, but you haven't. You talk about the poorest people, and I done a bit of door knocking in Barpool not too long ago. Now, that is an area of deprivation, yep, granted. They've also got really big gardens. And if you'd have been knocking in Barpool anytime soon, you would realise that they are really miffed that they can't do anything with their garden waste. Even in council housing, they can't do anything with their garden waste because these people can't afford the £40 you want to charge for green bins. So, can you explain that to your residents, Councillor Elliott? These are also the self-same people who you berate us for having to use food banks, but you still expect them to pay £40 for a green bin. So how do you rationalise that? You give it with one hand and you take it away with the other. That's typical. There is a lot of things in this budget that I'm really pleased with because there's a lot of things that my residents have discussed with me over the years, and the cameras being one of them. I brought the cameras to this council. I brought the request to the OSC for having cameras due to antisocial behaviour in Arbury, and I was told no. Now we can actually afford to do it because we can have extra cameras and leave the cameras that have been in situ for 4 or 5 years, or however many years it was, in place and not affect those cameras. So this is us looking after the residents. This is us taking on board what residents have told us when we've knocked on doors, we've spoke to people, and this is what they want. They want cleaner town centres. They want to see action. They don't want platitudes and then a leaflet through the door pretending that you're going to do something, or hiding behind the skirts of other people that are actually doing something. In the case of transforming Nuneaton, the money is coming from government, the money is coming from the county council. They've already pledged to invest £19 million in the town centre. Where's yours? Where is it? Nowhere. You sit on a board and then you take credit for everything that's positive, and yet you take no credit for anything that's not. And that's typical, absolutely typical. We've put literally our money where our mouth is. I'm very thankful to the officers that have been involved. It's not on the back of a fag packet. There's been a lot of work gone into this. This budget is signed off by the same 151 officer that signed off your budget. So if ours is on the back of a fag packet, yours is even worse, because you've only got a few lines, because you've just dumped everything you can into Bedworth in the hope of buying some votes.
Councillor Jackson, you have the right to reply.
Say that 44 years of financial mismanagement, something like that was said. Well, that's not what our auditors say. Our auditors have never made such comments. In fact, they commend our council's accounts. So let's dispel that myth immediately. It's been suggested we change our policy on the use of new homes bonus and we use it for the revenue budget. Financial incompetence being suggested by the opposition. No, we will not do that. We will not run this council into the depths that some Conservative councils not that far away have ended up in. And you took officers' advice about increasing caravan weekly charges. You don't have to accept them. Grow up, come into the real world. Politics is making decisions for the people we represent. You didn't have to accept that suggestion. You could have said, actually, we won't hurt some of perhaps the poorest people in our communities. I find that shocking that you hide behind an officer's recommendation to you. You could have said no. And coming to Bedworth, yes, Bedworth is important to us. I'm quite shocked to hear Bedworth councillors happy to support a budget that's putting £50,000 less into the Transforming Bedworth project. I'm quite shocked that you'd be happy to put your hands up to that proposal. And I don't know what on earth your thoughts are in regard to leisure and culture, because, and forgive me, I've only had your budget tonight, and I've quickly added it up, and you're making cuts for my addition, and apologies if it's wrong, of £120,000. Cuts to the arts budget. You're going to close the museum. Not once ever, close it one day a week. You're not once ever on the doorstep has anyone ever said to me, Julie, you want to close the museum. Not once on the doorstep has everybody said, you're going to close it one day a week. It's in your budget. Not once has anybody on the doorstep said to me, you should close the Civic Hall 2 days a week. And not once has any member in Bedworth ever said to me, we should spend less money. Ridiculous comments. In fact, I think Councillor Evans said something about spending more in Bedworth. Well, actually, you're not. Your proposals in your budget, as far as I can tell, are saying spend only half of the Labour proposals. Madam Mayor, I'm going to suggest we close the debate at this stage and take the vote, but I cannot support an alternative budget which actually cuts to the bone some services that are much valued and increases charges across the board, with the exception of 3 items, by 2.7%. That's hitting everybody. The poorest in our communities, yeah, and those more wealthy. That's not political sense to me. So I can't support these proposals.
I do not expect members of the public to make statements during this debate. Thank you. Right, we will be moving to the debate on the amendment, and I know that there is to be a recorded vote.
If you could please indicate for or against the amendment, please. Councillor Beaumont.
Against.
Councillor Brindley-Edwards.
For.
Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Croft.
For.
Councillor Daffin. Councillor Doughty.
Against.
Councillor Elliott.
Against.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Gazane. Absent. Councillor Glass.
Against.
Councillor Golby.
For.
Councillor Gran.
For.
Councillor Gutteridge.
For.
Councillor Hancox.
Against.
Councillor Hocking.
Against.
Councillor Jackson.
Against.
Councillor Condacor has left the meeting. Councillor Llewellyn-Nash.
For.
Councillor Lloyd.
Against.
Councillor Longdon.
Against.
Councillor Pandair.
For.
Councillor Phillips.
Against.
Councillor Pomfret.
Against.
Councillor Rudkin.
Against.
Councillor A. Sargent.
For.
Councillor J. Sargent.
For.
Councillor J. Shepherd. Councillor T. Shepherd.
Against.
Councillor Smith.
For.
Councillor Tandy.
Against.
Councillor Tromans.
For.
Councillor Walmsley.
Emphatically for.
Councillor Watkins.
Against.
Councillor Wilson.
For.
The amendment is lost. We will move to, excuse me, we will move, please excuse me 1 minute. Right, we will move to the debate on the, sorry.
Debate on a substantial.
Yeah, we will. It because the Labour proposal becomes a substantive motion, and we will move to the debate on that motion. Okay, thank you. Just give me a moment. Councillor Lloyd, you've got a list there, have you as well, Lloyd? We'll start off with, Councillor Wilson.
Opposite a few moments ago, I think it was Councillor Phillips who tried to emblazon metaphorically across the air, Tory cut. Here's one for you, Councillor Phillips. Labour waste.
A tall bloke.
Year on year, the Civic Hall does not wipe its face. Yes, there has to be an element of subsidy of the arts. But the amount we subsidise the Civic Hall to, Mondays and Tuesdays, are the least financially viable. We even leave them lit up in the middle of the night when there is no show. How is that sound, prudent business sense? We had the great, and it was supposed to be, and it was mentioned earlier, about helping obesity within the borough. Again, like Councillor Evans, I suppose I'm hardly one to talk about this. But you said the climbing tower would deal with obesity. And we all know where the climbing tower ended, in the dustbin of history, where it belongs. And then we had more labour waste on Gresham Road. You talk about £2 million and highlighting that, and why should we do that? Of course we should do that. That's £2 million worth of taxpayers' money. £2 million you didn't budget for, and we had to find. That's labour waste. And it makes me wonder, because they keep saying this year after year, that the government makes us find these savings. Yes, there is an element of savings, but if we could do without them in many instances, why have we been paying this amount of money in the past to begin with? Again, the answer comes back to labour waste. Now, we talk about the leisure feasibility, and I think it was Councillor Jackson who mentioned it. I'm sorry if I've got the wrong person. She said politics is making decisions for the people we represent. Quite true. Look at the budget. In the Cabinet papers, £50,000 for a feasibility study. OK. In the amendment she put forward to Cabinet on Wednesday, another £50,000 for a feasibility study. Look at the capital budget that was put forward, £1.1 million for feasibility works. How many feasibility budgets do we need to work out what our future is going to be in terms of leisure provision? How many? How much more money are you going to waste? You're going to put in, on top of £1.1 million, which is coming from new homes bonus money, as I understand it, you're going to put in another £100,000, which could have been spent, and in our shadow budget, which has been rejected, would have been spent on people's priorities and putting what residents want first. We talk about, not once on the doorstep have you wanted to talk about closing the museum. No, I don't want to close the museum on one day if I can help it. But, and Councillor Jackson said this once before, and it was on camera, and I fully endorse it, politics is also about making difficult decisions. Not once on the doorstep did I hear people endorse a £40 green bin tax. We then go on about 100k for transforming Bedworth. You have no plan and no clue what you're going to do with that £100,000. And that's why it is foolhardy for us to expect to vote for a Labour proposal on transforming Bedworth with your track record. As my friend and colleague Councillor Gutteridge keeps saying, Gresham Road. If you can't get a £2 million, well, it ended up being £2 million project right, 2.6, sorry, 0.6 into £2 million, how can we trust you on a multi-million pound endeavour in either Nuneaton or in Bedworth? We can't. Where is the plan? Under our budget, we proposed that we would actually have a proper, worked out, reasoned, business-like study into what needs doing. The party opposite wouldn't know business-like if it came up and slapped them on the face. And there we have it, up the road, Abbey Street. And things are not going well there at the moment. We've had the demolition, and we've seen what is happening there great big gaping holes in our townscape. How can we trust Labour to transform Bedworth if we are still going to have the problems we are experiencing up in Abbey Street? And I supported Abbey Street, and the party over here supported it, because we know that the future of Nuneaton is making difficult decisions and investing. That's why we spoke about it before you even started mentioning it in budgets before. But if we have that to go by, if we have the Abbey Street as the template, then that £100,000 is just going down the plug hole, so I can't support that. Yet again, it's a bland budget with no vision.
Councillor Walmsley, sorry.
As I hinted to earlier, I said before about Councillor Wilson and Councillor Golby and their endeavours. Whilst I disagree profoundly with many elements of this budget, I do thank the Leader and the Deputy for what I'm sure has been a very long and arduous task, the same as my colleagues have had, and I know that it is never easy to come together with a budget, and so I'm grateful for them for doing so. Now, that doesn't mean I have to agree with it. I'm sure both of the whole of the Labour side will appreciate that I don't. But there is one thing that actually doesn't help either of us, and this is the continued to have one hand behind our back tied. And it's an issue that I've raised at, I think, every budget so far, and I make no apologies for continuing to raise tonight, and that is the provision of our new homes bonus and what we have done and continue to use it for going forwards. As a background, as the papers show, this is worth approximately £1.6 million this year. If you look at the budget that's going to be put forward as per Appendix D, our total spend this year is roughly 16 point something million. So effectively, this is a 10% additional spend that we could be using, that we could fund frontline services, that could pay for the green bin tax and stop Labour having to put it many times over, and other items that are unpalatable, both budgets that we don't particularly want to have to do. But I'm sad that we continue to lag behind other neighbouring authorities, where every other local authority uses some towards their revenue spend. And many of them, I believe including North Warwickshire, Rugby and Solihull, use 100% of this money into the revenue budget. The revenue budget for those is our frontline services. These are services that council provides day in, day out. And I'm sad that we continue to have one hand tied behind our backs, because I'm assuming the advice, although maybe the leader doesn't want to use it, but I'm assuming the advice given to her is the same as given to my side, and that we continue to have it tied behind our backs by an unelected, unaccountable town hall bureaucrats who refuse to allow anything of this new homes bonus to be used within our revenue budgets. And I'm sick to the back teeth of our residents in Nuneaton and Bedworth having less money spent on their essential frontline services compared to other authorities which continue to do this, who have budgets set in the same process as we do, that continue to be signed off, allowing new homes bonus, in many cases 100% of that, an extra 10% to this council, to be used on our everyday spending. And I will continue, and I make no bones for flagging up, an area of money given to us by central government to be spent on, and as our members of Parliament have asked written questions and questions in the House, continue to be spent on any particular service in any way, in any budget stream which this local authority sees. I make no apologies for championing what is our residents, what is their rights to have a rather large pot of money given to this authority to be spent on the services that they want to see, not squandered away or hived away into back rooms or into projects that don't particularly have impact on their daily lives, but actually when it should be spent here, when it could be spent here, when other areas spend it to their frontline services. So I repeat effectively a speech I almost virtually gave this time last year. We need to unshackle ourselves from this hiving off of the new homes bonus and allow it to be spent, and to have it spent in ways in which the national government guidelines clearly state it's able to, and which every neighbouring local authority, some to as high as 100%, use. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Walmsley, I'm sorry that you made the comments that you did, and I do really personally object very, very much to the personal attacks that you have just made on officers of this council, officers who have no opportunity to respond to you in this meeting. My next speaker is Councillor Evans.
What the leader of the council said about the auditors. The auditors do not tell us that we spend the money good. That is not their job, okay? Their job, okay, is to say we spend the cash in accordance with accounting rules, okay? Let's be honest, if they came in and said, oh, we're spending the money well, you know, in the papers tonight, I mean, we've lost £53,000 on car parking income. I don't think they'd have a very good opinion of the council's finances if that was their job. But it's not. But yet again, Councillor Jackson misled council. She does it every year, but, you know, hey-ho. We hear about austerity this, austerity that. Well, you know, if you was like, you know, if you was the Prime Minister, why would you give more money, to an organisation that squandered millions over the last 44 years? Why would you give more money to an organisation that overspends by £2.5 million to build a shed? You know, why would you do it? You know, but, you know, at the end of the day, that's all we hear from the present leadership. You know, the council isn't responsible, you know, for these things. It's the government. They won't give us the money. But what I liked last week was Councillor Jackson's leaflet in the Wenbrook ward, where it says, Labour is working with partners to gain £50 million in government grant funding. The leader of the council put out the statement on the regeneration and leisure in her ward. But where's this money coming from? Well, it's coming from Boris Johnson's Conservative government and is his second at the county council.
Councillor Evans, you are supposed to be speaking to you to do so, please, and not diverse into other issues. Thank you.
Shifting and finger pointing when it comes to making applications to Sports England for, you know, the grants for the leisure facilities. But moving on, about the £100,000 for Bedworth Town Centre, in my opinion, it's really just compensation for the Bedworth residents after years of neglect from that side of the house. Because, and you know what shocks me, Councillor Jackson, is the fact that you haven't even stood there and said what you want to use this money for. You've literally got the opportunity here to tell us what you want to use that £100,000 for. But you've got no ideas, and we know that. That's why 51% of the borough voted for a Conservative council last May. And if Owen Reid got those extra 22 votes, we'd be sitting there tonight and our budget would be getting through. You know, I've sat through these budget meetings for years, and there's never been any direct funding for Bedworth Town Centre. Why now? Oh, 80 days' time. Ooh. Conservative gains Poplar. Conservative gain Bede. Conservatives gain Heath.
How many times do I have to speak to the item under discussion? This is not a hustings meeting for any party. Please stick to the budget. And I don't think it's very funny that you seem to. Please speak to the budget.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And the budget, because there's £100,000 in.
Councillor Evans, if I say you are not, please speak to the budget.
I'll about that later. But anyway, yeah, I mean, you know, we don't know what they want to spend it on. And, you know, with their track record on this council, you know, the £100,000 would probably just be spent on a consultant. So, you know. Anyway, moving on. I too agree with Councillor Walmsley about the new homes bonus. £1.62 million, okay, that we could use tonight to unleash Nuneaton and Bedworth and Bulkington's potential. And the fact of the matter is, it's actually enshrined in government legislation. It's staring you in the face. It says the new homes bonus should be used to fund frontline services. And then in brackets, it says, including refuse collections. Well, in my opinion, you know, collecting green waste is just a type of refuse collection. I might be wrong about that, but, you know, at the end of the day, it is a frontline service. And, you know, you only have to do a bit of research into some local government think tanks. Rugby Nuneaton Borough Council. They used it in the 2012-2013 financial year to subsidise their green bin charge. Rugby's done it. Hinckley's done it. Why can't we? It's £1.62 million to use. And when we take control, we will be using it in 18 days' time. Okay? Because our borough deserves better than the budget that's been presented tonight. And, you know, I'll leave it at that. I think I've made my point.
Councillor Lloyd.
Thanks that have been made in a minute, but I will speak to the budget proposals. The 1.16 for the leisure strategy. That is to move the projects forward, and that's not for the feasibility studies. That is for them to move those projects forward. That includes Bedworth Pool, Nuneaton Pool and Tops Farm. That's to enable us to actually plan and draw the plans and everything and move them forward to the next stage. Bedworth Leisure Centre, yes, we are committed to a new Bedworth Leisure Centre, and this budget,
I'm not taking any more.
this budget actually is a good budget for Bedworth as well as Nuneaton. The Bedworth Leisure Centre, the idea, that's why if you look at the previous cabinet minutes, in there it does state that we're moving the contract, extending the contract 4+1. That's 4 years plus 1 year. The reason we're doing that is to accommodate the new centre. So the new centre can be built. The existing organisation or the new organisation, whoever it takes over, can then transfer to the new one and knock the old one down and create a new car park on the front. The reason we're out to consultation at the moment is quite simple. We're asking people what they want included in that building. We've allocated around about 20 million to build that new wet centre, to build the leisure centre at the side of it and everything. Now we've earmarked that within the plans. We've said that's what it would cost. So what we've got to do now is draw up the financial plans to actually back that up, and those are taking place. Our aim on this side is to build a new leisure centre within 5 years. That's our aim. Now, we're sat there at the moment and we're asking people what they want into that leisure facility. That 20 million cost could come down because people might not want certain things within that leisure facility. So that figure could come down. The same with Nuneaton facility. We're proposing, that we either have another 8 lanes, another 8-lane pool built alongside it, or we have another swimming pool built as a whole, including the 8 lanes, and that's what's being looked at. So there's a lot of change, and with that lot of change, we have to go out to consultation, and that's what we're doing now. And that consultation will end at the end of the month. So, on the 1.1 million that we talked about, 1.16 million it actually is, that is for the strategy. That is to work the projects and move them forward. On a couple of points that are made, the opposition keep making points about Gresham Road. Well, there's at least 3 Conservative county councillors, I might be wrong, there might be 4, but there's at least 3 sat over there, and the same people want to run this authority. Yet the Bermuda Bridge has gone up from 3.7 million to 8.9 million, according to my figures. I wonder if that's common knowledge out there. The new homes bonus. There's been many talks about the new home bonus. We have officers within this council, and I'll defend those officers. I think some of the comments that have been made by a member of the opposition, or members of the opposition actually, have been disgraceful. Because we had Councillor Wilson on his feet earlier on criticising me, saying the same officers that advised you advised us. And I quite agree with him. They're very good financial officers, all of them. I totally 100% agree. And then we've got them criticising them for not releasing the homes bonus. Now, the way I understand it, I will finish there, Madam Mayor. So I'm going to support the Labour budget and not a budget on the back of a fag packet.
I thought you were, yes.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Well, isn't this quite bizarre, really? Feels like some sort of game show where the star prize has been lost and we're all trying to pretend we're interested in a second-hand fondue set. We've had a budget rejected that dealt with specific problems, with specific actions, and now we're debating a same old, go down the road the same as we've been going into more decline budget with some, because there's an election on the horizon, some money thrown in different places to try and sweeten the pill. We've had some debate about whether it's 100,000 is better than 50,000 being spent in Bedworth, and we've got an unfocused plan from you to spend 100,000 on we know not what. You might buy 100 grand's worth of bricks for all we know at 25p each. Whereas at least we've put forward a plan that says that we will develop a vision for the town, that says what we want to do. Because let's face it, when we're spending £19 million plus of money that's come from the county and the government, we deserve to have a decent plan so that we build something with those bricks that's worthwhile and not just end up with another same as less interesting building like we've got, say, in possibly the least interesting town centre development ever, the Rope Walk, where you approach the town from the roundabout, what should be the glory of the thing looking at you, we see the car park, right? You know, and then it's hidden by a wall as you go around the side of it, so you still can't see what's there. You have to actually get inside the thing before you find it's there. You know, we've got a council where we're supporting Poundland at £1 a year rent, and little businessmen in the town are paying thousands of times more than that to try and run a small factory unit. It's wrong. You've criticised us for wanting to close the Civic Hall on the nights when there's nobody there to do anything anyway. It stands to reason. I was a trustee of a theatre in this borough for 5 years. We didn't keep the theatre open with the lights burning and paying people when there was nothing on. And by the way, we had more shows on, more nights of the year, cheaper prices, and filled more often. So it's just good business sense to do that. I would just like to say, it's such a bad idea what you're proposing to do. The new homes bonus could be used to unleash services and improvements in this town. We've decided not to do it. We're constrained. We're hamstringing ourselves. We're stuck with it now. Let's get to the vote.
Okay. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 more speakers, 7 with Councillor Jackson winding up, and then I will be going to the vote. Councillor Croft.
I've made the point before at these meetings that we never seem to see anything resembling a plan or a policy or a vision from the current cabinet. We generally just tend to go through process. So when I heard a few weeks ago that there was a huge unexpected surplus in this year's estimates that had to be spent effectively on one-off capital costs, I was quite excited to see what great schemes and plans they would come up with to revive the borough. And Madam Mayor, is that it? That's the result of this windfall. I'm delighted that the Labour group have embraced the Conservative idea of the Transforming Bedworth Working Party, but nothing exists yet. It's just at the consultation stage. There's no plan. Nothing is defined here. We know what happens, and unfortunately I know what happens through my career. What happens when you spend a lot of money on this sort of money on consultants? Not very much. You might have a few months of very expensive consultants, and at the end of it you're left with a very big bill and a few PowerPoint slides. This isn't a plan. This is a wad of cash attached to a headline for leaflets. That's effectively what it is. That's what this is really about. It's the last gasp of a pretty discredited administration trying to save their seats and keep themselves in power for a few more wretched months. And even if they had a plan, we know what happens when we let them run a large-scale project. They couldn't get Gresham Road right, which, as Councillor Evans alluded to, is effectively a very large car park and a shed. And they went £2 million over budget on it. That's not a rounding error. That is serious financial mismanagement in the budgeting side, not in the accounting side. That's a very different thing. Then there's the Abbey Street project, as Councillor Wilson alluded to. That seems to have gone very quiet. How is that being managed? If we open the books to public scrutiny, what would that look like? And how is this going to become a reality? Because this budget doesn't say so. It just chucks the cash out the door, and then we'll work out the details later. And it's the same with the leisure proposals. You're still at the consultation stage. It's not finished yet. There's no idea. It's just a price tag looking for an idea. They've got no plan. They've got no vision. They've got no clue. And no way can we let these people carry on mismanaging public money like this. Now, Madam Mayor, you don't get many laughs in the budget process. But when I saw the statement from the controlling group that in this budget there will be, and I quote, no further increases in fees and charges in the general fund other than those already announced. Well, I just made it. I just held it together. They've obviously forgotten that before the last election, they promised they wouldn't charge for green waste collection. And they tried to smear the opposition, saying that we would. What happened after the election was safely out of the way. They slapped a regressive tax on green bins. Now, I'm delighted, Councillor Phillips, that the Labour Party, after 120 years, has learned that you have to raise money before you spend it. I'm delighted that you've learned how to match incomings and outgoings, but really, to hit the poorest, to price them out of a service, you've learned the wrong lesson there. Now, they've wasted money, like the 2 million on Gresham Road, like the 200,000 on the climbing wall, like the hundreds of thousands subsidising Poundland. And after they've wasted the money, they've got to claw it back from the taxpayer through the green bin taxes, through the hiking of parking charges, which again lost them another, was it $500,000 now? I've stopped counting in revenue. And what's the account? What's the result? It's decay and decline. They've left a graveyard of business in our town centres. They have left economic archaeology in their wake. Their legacy is shuttered up shops, a hole where the co-op used to be, parks falling to ruin and empty streets. And instead of a plan to revive our towns, this budget simply gives a political bung because there's an election coming up. If there's a word I'd use to describe it, it is failed. This Labour budget has failed. They failed the people of the borough. They failed in their policies to even produce policies. They failed to produce a plan and a vision for our future. They failed tonight on budget night, and in just under 3 months' time, they're going to fail on election night too. Thank you very much.
Councillor Tromans.
I listened, as I always do, quite intently to the leader when they stood up and introduced their budget. And I heard some words which, taken entirely on their own, on paper, actually sound and look quite good. And I thought, they seem a bit familiar. Yeah, they were similar to what was said last year and the year before and the year before that and the leader before that. In fact, it could have been the previous leader speaking. And you know what? Nothing's changed. The town centre is not being regenerated. These things aren't being sorted out. All this aiming high, vision this, whatever. Okay, you lose overall control of the council, and now all of a sudden it's panic station measures, and you're grateful for the Conservative government coming up with 25 million and the potential for millions more. You're now finally stopping dragging your feet quite so much on Vicarage Street and Abbey Street and working a bit more with the county council. But come on. People can see what's been happening for at least the last decade or more, and that's decline. Hinckley's regenerating, Rugby, but not you guys. I'm not going to list all the things that, like next door, you've massively overspent on and got wrong with your budgeting and your planning. This budget is about far more than single one-line things this month, this year. This is about trust, and trust going forward. And how can you expect the people of the borough to trust you after all the years of failure and decline? They can't. You're going through the motions. What we've done is say, look, we need to urgently regenerate these things. The first thing we said after we pioneered and championed the idea of regenerating Bedworth, when you finally got on board with that and we were shown some slides, was oh dear, what a paucity of ambition. We want to do far more for Bedworth. And that doesn't mean take the 50,000 that we're going to spend on getting the consultation worked up into a proposal and adding another 50,000 which you've done but can't explain what it's for. Just throwing more money at consultants. Like we heard from Councillor Lloyd earlier, 1.1 million for somebody to draw some pictures of the projects. You know, people need the money spent wisely and they need it to actually deliver something other than the hole on Abbey Street. You guys cannot do that.
Symbol's gone off.
We need a change of control.
Yeah,
here.
I know,
We need
I know,
a Conservative budget, and what you could do tonight on your budget is at least help throw a lifeline to those traders out there, because we can't regenerate it, we know, overnight. It's going to take some time. But you could just tweak your budget. You could make us all go out for 10 minutes and tweak it to put in about cleaning up the town centres. You could do that much for Bulkington, Bedworth and Nuneaton. You could throw the traders a little lifeline with a Christmas parking thing. It's not that much money. You could do those things, just tweak your budget tonight. Give them a lifeline until we can actually really get the proper projects going. So claim it as your idea, whatever, but throw these people some help. Thank you.
Councillor Jill Shepherd.
I'm pleased that the budget proposed by my party has included growth items. I welcome the 5k for the VE celebrations across the borough and the 39k for 1.5 environmental quality operatives. We'll be working in clearance of river and water courses, installing and repairing litter bins and graffiti removal, and we'll be working and supporting those other refuse cleansing workers that work extremely hard for this council and at times are berated by the other side. There's been no reduction in grants for the voluntary sector and no rises in fees and charges. 100k to go towards transforming Bedworth initiatives and 50 towards the leisure strategy and feasibility programme. All this after the losses of our government grants. Not aspirational, I would suggest, but real commitment by this side of the House.
Could I ask that we suspend standing orders because we're about to run out of time?
Is there a seconder for suspending standing orders? Councillor Jackson.
With items to the conclusion of agenda item 12 only.
Is there a second? Thank you. I will go to the vote on a show of hands. The amendment is that we continue with the meeting until the end of item 12, which is the budget item. Could I see all those in favour, please? Those against? That is lost. So the meeting will continue until the end of item 12, which are the budget items. My next bit.
So the amendment was carried.
Pardon? Yes, the amendment was carried, sorry.
Point of order.
Yes.
Chairman's moved was a procedural motion. The constitutionally specifically states you cannot make an amendment to a procedural motion. And the vote has to be put straight away.
Could you tell us exactly where it states that in the Constitution, please, Councillor?
Memorise the document. If I recall, I think it's 4C 17.
Carry on reading
14.
it from wherever you're reading it from. Go on.
I'm not reading it from anywhere, just from recollection. May have got that wrong, but the Constitution does specifically state you cannot make an amendment to a procedural motion, and therefore it would be unconstitutional to accept the vote that's just been taken. And if it does, then I think I'd have to consider.
Well, I am
taking part
Councillor
in this
Evans. I am. What could happen is that we simply vote against people could vote against your proposal, and you'd be back here tomorrow night finishing the budget proposals up. That is the choice you would have. Mr. Richardson, can you help me, please? I am advised that our Borough Solicitor can find nothing in the Constitution that states exactly what you say, so I will proceed with the amendment, which was that we suspend standing orders until such a time as item 12 is finished. Is there? Yes, and I will be taking a vote on that. All those in favour of that amendment, please show. And against? That amendment is carried. Right, I have 3 further speakers. Councillor on the budget proposal, Councillor Elliott.
We've been accused tonight of not listening to residents. Nothing could be further from the truth. Our residents who use food banks and can't afford the £40 a year charge for green bins also can't afford £30 a year. But we are not forcing them to pay that. We're not forcing them to pay anything. We're encouraging them to compost. In actual fact, when I last canvassed in Arbury Ward with the brilliant Joseph Bevan, the residents were very happy with that. I suggest if the party opposite are so concerned about green bin charges, then you lobby your government to fund it for this council, for Rugby Council, for North Warwickshire Council, and for all the other councils forced by the dire and well-documented situation of local authority finances, forced to make a charge. And Councillor Evans, you are wrong about green waste being a frontline service. Go and have a look at your own government's website, where it says some councils provide a home collection service for garden waste. There may be a small fee for green waste collection. I can send you the link to that if you like. Now, Councillor Walmsley started off this evening making a public apology for his lack of attendance at council meetings. He then went on to say he makes no apologies for suggesting that our highly qualified, hard-working officers should be elected, not employed, referring to them as unelected bureaucrats. I think he should apologise for this. Thank you.
Thank you.
I made the statement that I make no apologies for championing hard-working taxpayers and ensuring that actually we use their money that they give us wisely.
I think a lot of the stuff that I wanted to bring up has already been covered tonight. So the town centre regeneration, it was brought up in the budget speech, so I think we should be able to allude to it. And yeah, £50 million is great. It's £50 million coming from government funds, like it's already been said. We actually put a budget proposal together to keep the green bins at £30. And you're constantly telling us that people are poor and people can't pay for these things, and yet you still want them to pay £40. You can't have it both ways. You've got to realise that people can see through this. I'm sorry, I don't believe I mentioned anybody.
I will take the point of person, as I do every time, at the end of your speech, Councillor Golby.
Thank you. We actually suggested a while ago to start turning things around in the town centres, and we were laughed at. People put things out on social media, and it was completely untrue. And yet here we are, 2 years later, you're finally cottoning on. It's great. It's great that you're taking up our budget ideas, but you're a bit late. So again, with the green bins, you promised to keep those green bins free. You said in your election material that you would keep them free, and now you're having a go at us because we want to actually reduce the charge. I mean, it's just ludicrous. You couldn't make this up. Here, Labour fully costed for local people, protecting free garden waste collections and making sure our refuse collection is good value for money. That was a tweet from Councillor Lloyd. So he's deleted his tweets, but unfortunately Google keeps all the things like that, so you've got to do a bit better to get rid of them. The officer's advice. You're saying highly qualified, hard-working officers, which I've already agreed with you on that, but in the next breath, you're telling us to ignore their advice. So which is it? Do you ignore their advice when you have to put money into things hand over fist because the finances aren't stacking up? So do you take their advice or do you ignore their advice? Is it the officers or is it you? Make your mind up, because the residents are getting a bit they're getting a bit wary to it all, and they're not that daft. They're not as daft as you think, as Lisa Nandy actually said during the leadership at Hustings not that long ago. People are not as daft as you think. The other thing I would say is we're always hearing about it's Tory government cuts and Tory this and Tory that. So what's left over from the halcyon days of Tony Blair? I mean, I know Tony Blair's a dirty word to the hard left.
Councillor Golby, could you please stick to the item under discussion, which is the budget as proposed?
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's a budget item. So what significant budget items are left over from those wonderful days? We've got a few fountains. There's one in the town centre that gets full with rubbish every now and again, and got to phone up somebody to come and clean it. But again, it goes back to the old saying, doesn't it, that with socialism, sooner or later you run out of other people's money. Well, in this case, you've run out of your own ideas, and you're taking ours. At least if people want Conservative ideas, they should vote Conservative, not 2 years down the line and wait for the Labour group to actually present those ideas as their own. And you know what? People really aren't that daft. They can see through you. They can see through you like you're a pane of glass. And I really hope that at the next election in May, that they actually put that into play at the ballot box. I genuinely hope so, because this town is gasping for air, and you're just holding it down. You've been doing it for years. You're only doing this budget now. I mean, it's so thoughtless. The budget that you've proposed is actually thoughtless. If you would have gone out and spoken to people, you would not have just put the budget together that you've put. There's absolutely nothing in here for people that I've spoken to in your wards as well as mine. Nothing. It's ridiculous. I mean, sometimes it's just people are so angry out there, and you're just missing the point. And I hope this budget actually shows them that we are the ones listening, and you are the ones that are just hoping to sweep everything under the carpet and get away with it at the next election, because really that is what you're trying to do. Just get away with it. Just get us over the line and we'll sort it out afterwards. It's not going to wash anymore. Absolutely not going to wash. Your budget shows you have absolutely no affinity with anybody in Nuneaton, Bedworth or Bulkington, because you've basically done nothing for them.
The last speaker before I ask Councillor Jacks to wind up the debate, Councillor Graham.
It represents the legacy of a broken promise, and that was that Labour would not introduce green bin charges if they got into power. Merely months later, they introduced those charges, and they've not even reduced them in this budget. And if they had been honest at the time, before the elections in May 2 years ago, then perhaps 13 Labour voters would have voted Conservative and Bede, and we'd have a different party making the decisions tonight. And I would say that perhaps that's the reason why they withheld that information until after the elections. I don't see any plan to prevent or punish fly tipping within this budget.
Second.
Only the usual running around after it's been done, nothing preventative, nothing to stop the problem from happening. No plan for the 100,000 for Bedworth Town Centre. And this is important because in 10 weeks' time, we may be having to pick up the thread of where you left off, and we would need to know in depth what's being done, what's got to be done with the money, and at the moment we're in the dark about it because we've put forward a detailed plan for our funding for Bedworth Town Centre. We've got a great scoping report, but we've got no specific plans for the 100,000 that have been put forward. And I think that after 40 years of being taken for granted in Bedworth, they've looked at the broken promises, not just on this budget to do with the green bins, but on things like the woodlands and Hawkesbury, and they're going to make their own decisions in a few weeks, and perhaps we'll be having another one of these meetings where we're in control and we're able to implement our shadow budget. But for now, I can't support the current budget because it hasn't got, from the Labour group, because it hasn't got enough vision, hasn't got any aspiration for our communities, and it's just not good enough. It's not uniting to achieve. It's floundering on 40 years of broken promises.
Point of order.
Councillor Evans.
Thank you, Madam. 4.13.10 regarding procedural motions, where the Constitution specifically dictates, and it's the first line for reference for the legal director, that once a motion has been, a procedural motion has been moved, you cannot hear a further motion, a further procedural motion. You'll see it's the first line on 4.13.10. And I'm therefore concerned, Madam Mayor, about whether we are currently in a constitutional meeting, specifically when we're discussing passing a budget and the legal implications that may have on the in accordance with the Local Government Act 2000. I would like advice on that, because I am concerned.
Do you want Philip to go? The Borough Solicitor to give the advice as to the point you have just raised, Councillor Evans.
Well, Madam Mayor, I'll advise you.
You're advising me. Thank you.
4.13.10 is motions which may be moved during debates. And it says, when a motion is under debate, no other motion may be moved except the following procedural motions. So it outlines the to withdraw a motion, to amend a motion, to proceed to the next business, that the question be now put, which is move the vote, that to adjourn a debate, to adjourn a meeting, that the meeting continue beyond 3 hours in duration, to exclude the public and press in accordance with the access to information rules, and to not hear further a member named under Rule 20.3, or to exclude them from the meeting under Rule 20.4. What that doesn't do, Madam Mayor, is prevent an amendment to a procedural motion. That's a different issue. What this is saying is that whilst you're debating a matter, you can only move procedural motions.
Thank you. And that advice is quite clear, so we will continue as we were before. Before I call Councillor Jackson to wind up the debate, I will ask Councillor Phillips, who seconded the motion and reserved his right to speak.
I'll be brief, really. The Labour budget continues a solid, prudent financial running of services for the borough. Madam Mayor, we inherit the past but can change the future. We inherited government cuts of 65%, just facts, over the past 10 years, a cumulative total of £6,874,000 reduction in our support grants. In 2010, the last time the Tories ran the council, they had a total portfolio budget of almost 22 million to deal with, whereby we run a budget today of 15 million. Madam Mayor, even the electorate kicked them out and kept them out the following 5 elections. They were so bad, they lasted 2 years. You've had plenty of opportunity, and no doubt it might come again. You know, but to say 44 years of Labour, there's a reason. Because we deliver good services. Because we're fair, we're prudent, we worry about people. The new public library, this budget shows our commitment to change. The £100 start on transforming Bedworth is welcomed, and it will be worked through. The new public library and business centre is brilliant, along with changes to the co-op, and that should be a springboard for change. The new swimming baths complex at Bedworth will transform the area and leisure opportunities, with changes at the Pingles will develop first-class facilities. With new investment coming into the borough at long last, and we welcome it. I don't care which government gives it to us or where we get it from, we need it because we've been starved of it. You know, unlike the party opposite, we've mentioned this so many times, we will continue to work with partners. Madam Mayor, budget again, 25 million. Not going to work with the West Midlands Combined Authority. We work with the West Midlands Combined Authority. We work with the LEC to bring money in and secured investment. We have joined other councils in funding a sub-regional recycling facility. That's change. doing something for the future, making things better. And what are we asking for our residents, households in a Band E property? An additional £5 a year. Not even 10 pence a week. And we have improved for residents, the council tax support scheme for residents who need help. Councillor Croft, that's a policy. You know, you might have missed that one, but that's helping residents who have trouble with the council tax. It's a policy. On top of that, 80% of households bands in Band A, B and C will not have to pay the £5. It will be less than £5 a year. Madam Mayor, I wonder what the Tory-run Shire Hall will charge the borough residents tomorrow, along with the Tory Police and Crime Commissioner and the underfunded social care by the government. Madam Mayor, we know we can achieve more by working together. We will continue to push for investment with our partners, including Sport England, etc. And we'll also be working with our partners to introduce electrical charging points in our car parks, working with the County Council. Policy, Councillor Croft. Another one, green policy. We will continue to plan to achieve the transformation of the borough whilst improving facilities across the borough, like the £120,000 plus for the replacement of the running track and floodlights at the Pingles. We will continue to make best use of what we have, whilst keeping reserves at a prudent level. And this means not wasting new homes bonus, because you never know when it's going to stop. They could turn the tap off like that and you could commit it to services you can't afford to pay. That's what happens in some councils. We chose to use that money to capital, to invest, to save. We're prudent, we're careful. Madam Mayor, this party works for and with our residents. Labour is delivering change. Our budget will deliver change. Our future work that we do with the town boards, etc., will deliver change. Conservative councillors sit on the same board as what we do. You know, you're all part of it. We will deliver change. It's the Labour governments that always deliver change.
Thank you. How very rude. The budget, please.
What did the council used to do with money that it's now cutting? Well, we used to provide more services. It's quite simple. You've got more money, you can do more things. Councils up and down the country have had to cut services to the bone. We have no vision. Well, b-new.co.uk. I suggest you read the visions that we have for our town centres and the vision that we have for our leisure strategy. Very clear. You can break it down into each of the towns if you want. You can break it down into town centre regeneration or leisure offer. Clear plans. Not nothing. Clear plans that we want to know what the public think about them. Very important we know that. That's why we're setting aside £100,000 in this budget, not the measly £50,000 that Councillor Evans, who represents the Bedworth ward, seems to be very happy with doing. We're doubling that amount of money. New homes bonus. Madam Mayor, I need to say, if you look at page 49 of our agenda today, you will see that there is a government consultation on new homes bonus. This is not secure money, year on year on year, which is why this council, under Labour, has used a very small amount into the revenue account, but use most of it for one-off projects, because we can't be certain it's there next year or 3 years down the line. We are prudent, we're sensible, we're not wasting taxpayers' money. I have to say the insult to a member of senior staff made by Councillor Walmsley, I think, was most unfortunate. We need to listen carefully to financial advice and value that. Councillor Golby said, either we listen to advice or we make our own decisions. Well, to Councillor Golby, I would say yes, we listen very carefully to advice given by our officers, That's important we do so. But then we make decisions as councillors, and sometimes those decisions are not those that officers would recommend. That is political leadership in a nutshell. We are investing money in cleaning up the towns. Councillor Tremans, I think it was, apologies if it wasn't you, Councillor Tremans, it was certainly somebody from there, talked about the Conservative budget investing in cleaning up. Councillor Shepherd has been very clear. We are employing additional people to do exactly that, cleaning up graffiti, cleaning up fly tipping, cleaning up water and river courses. Concrete money there in the budget that's proposed tonight. I have to say, Labour's budget is aiming high. It isn't aiming high with nothing, it's aiming high with visionary documents that are out there for consultation, clear concept plans. And we welcome the responses of members of the public, because Labour will work with the public. Labour will listen hard, and Labour has put a budget to council tonight that is clear, that is talking up our towns, not talking them down, as I have felt been said by members opposite. We need to be proud of our towns, and on this side of the chamber we are, but we know they can be even better. We welcome the opportunity to bid for up to £50 million of government funding. Of course we do. We know where it's coming from. It's coming from the government. But it's in actual fact, it's our money, isn't it? It's the country's money. It's the people around this chamber and the people throughout Nuneaton and Bedworth and the rest of the country's money when it's government money. It doesn't belong to one political party. It belongs to the people of this nation. Madam Mayor, I'm proud of the Labour budget tonight, and I hope we can move and vote on it, give concrete plans to our officers that they can work on over the next 12 months.
Thank you. We will be moving to the vote on the Labour budget, and it will be a recorded vote. Simone.
If you could indicate for or against the substantive motion, please. Councillor Beaumont. For. Councillor Brindley Edwards.
Abstain.
Councillor Brown.
Abstain.
Councillor Croft.
Abstain.
Councillor Daffin.
For.
Councillor Doughty.
For.
Councillor Elliott.
For.
Councillor Evans.
Abstain.
Councillor Gazanes, apologies. Councillor Glass.
For.
Councillor Golby.
Abstain.
Councillor Gran.
Abstain.
Councillor Gutteridge. Councillor Hancox.
For.
Councillor Hocking.
For.
Councillor Jackson.
For.
Councillor Condacall has left the meeting. Councillor Welling-Nash.
Abstain.
Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Longdon.
For.
Councillor Pandare. Councillor Phillips.
For.
Councillor Pomfret.
For.
Councillor Rudkin. Councillor A. Sargent. Councillor J. Sargent. Councillor J. Shepherd. Councillor T. Shepherd. Councillor Smith. Councillor Tandy.
For.
Councillor Tromans. Councillor Walmsley. Councillor Watkins. And Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. We will now move on to item. We will now move. The Labour budget has been agreed, but we will now move on to item 12B, which is the Housing Revenue Account Budget and Capital Programme 2020-21. Councillor Watkins, could I invite you to move the recommendations from Cabinet on the Council's Housing Revenue Budget and the Capital Programme?
And I'd like to take this time to thank all the officers that have worked so hard on this. This report sets out the revenue and capital budget for the Housing Revenue Account 2021-21, along with a forecast outturn for 2019-2020. The draft HRA budget for 2020-21 is shown at Section 4 and Appendix A, and is a deficit of 288,000. The deficit is after additional funding into the capital programme of 1.79 million to fund the ongoing new build acquisition programme. The HRA budget is based on a number of assumptions, as outlined in paragraph 4.8, which includes a rent increase of 2.7 in line with the updated government policy. This is after a 4-year period of rents being reduced by at least 1% a year. A number of other changes are included in the draft budget and are shown at section 4.12. The HRA continues to face a number of other significant changes, notably from the increased levels of right to buy sales, which reduces our stock and future income generation. Plus the recent government announcement of an increase in borrowing rates from the Public Works Loans Board, which has required an extensive review of the business plan. Section 5 of the report outlines the HRA capital programme, which totals 26.3 million, thus ensuring that the planned improvements to tenant zones continues, along with ongoing investment in acquisitions and new build homes to partly mitigate the reduction in the stock from the right to buy sales. Full details of the proposed capital programme is included at Appendix C of the report. A full review of the risk facing the HRA, along with the necessary total reserve cover of 1.3 million, is included in Section 6. This is addition to the minimum working balance of 1.3 million. This means the HRA must have a total reserve balance of 2.6 million to ensure it can mitigate the significant risks it faces. The HRA business plan has been updated with details shown in Section 7 of the report. A summary of the business plan shown graphically at Appendix B and demonstrates the HRA is viable over the full 30-year term, but will be kept under review. The recommendations are shown at Section 2 of the report, but it should be noted that recommendation at 2.6 should make reference to the paragraph 4.12 of the report and not 4.11 as published. Homelessness is a massive problem within the borough, and over the past 2 years has increased by 46%. So the things that we're doing to tackle this is the council's finalised and adopted a new homeless strategy to identify how we work with partners and the community to address homelessness within the borough. Conversion works have commenced on the council house to provide additional high-quality temporary accommodation for those families and individuals who find themselves homeless. The council has secured government funding to open a new fully supported hostel for rough sleepers. The hostel provides much needed support, advice and training opportunities for some of the most vulnerable people in our borough and community. The council has provided new homeless accommodation in Bedworth, bringing much needed accommodation to the Bedworth area, ensuring homeless families and individuals can continue to receive support from relatives, allow children to attend their usual school and parents to attend their usual work. The council entered into a partnership with the county to provide 3 equitable tenancies per year for care leavers to support them on leaving care. This project gives the best possible opportunity to care leavers to enter the adult society in a supported and positive manner. Council undertook an innovative procurement exercise to secure modular homes built here in the borough, which also reduces our carbon footprint by using local. We are now able to deliver spacious, affordable homes much more quickly than via our traditional build method. The council is already delivering new homes and has successfully achieved planning permission on 4 sites that will deliver 28 new homes alongside acquiring 19 new properties from the open market. This is in addition to the previous 51 council homes delivered at Kingsview, Camphill and Bedworth. The council has set aside more than 37 million between 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023 to deliver a further 150 council homes in addition to those being delivered in 2020, 2021. Between 2020, 2021 and 2022, 2023, the council has set aside £32.5 million to invest in its existing council homes to provide new windows, doors, bathrooms, kitchens, roofs, external insulation and heating systems. This is in addition to more than 11 million investment and has been made during the 2019-2020 and 12 million set aside for 2020-2021. Madam Mayor, that's putting forward the case for the support of the HRA budget, and I hope everybody can support me on this, but I'll reserve my right to speak later. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there...
I think the HRA budget tonight, but there are two quite important points that I do wish to make, one more historic and one extremely recent, and I'll start with the historic one first. I note from the Cabinet papers and the report tonight that there is an additional spend pressure within the HRA of £500,000, I believe it is, for security within our sheltered accommodation complexes. I fully support this. I think it is necessary, and I believe it's to do with fire safety and fire risk. But what I am concerned about is 3 years ago we removed, or rather the Labour controlling group removed the wardens from the sheltered housing complexes. And I am rather alarmed and astonished that at the time fire safety and the security of those residents living there was not as obviously not as adequately investigated as we now need to be, and that has shown a £500,000 spend pressure. Indeed, at the time, 3 years ago I think it was, myself and Councillor Golby spent an awful amount of time putting forward an alternative recommendation to full council that would have seen 75% of the wardens saved as opposed to the Labour budget. And now they have been penny wise but pound foolish, because now we are having to spend that much more money, we're having to put in additional security, and it also begs the question, were our residents safe for those entire 3 years? I think the party opposite has some serious questions to answer over that one. The most recent one, Madam Mayor, is a question or a statement or an ask of the portfolio holder, which is about Cleaver Gardens. Yesterday, I think many of us have seen the flooding down at Cleaver Gardens, which happened. I was actually on site there yesterday with County Councillor Jeff Clark to have a look, and I spoke to some of the fire officers who were there, and indeed some residents who, I think it's fair to say there was an equal amount of confusion and indeed anger that they are in this position again. Now, going back to Councillor Lloyd's point about building on floodplains, I think it is fair to say that had we been proposing Cleaver Gardens now, it would not have got planning permission because it is quite obviously on a floodplain. But this is not the first time that we have had these issues. Indeed, many residents are harking back to 2007. I believe also that was the time of Delamere Road, slightly before my involvement with the council. But I would ask the portfolio holder, in all seriousness, and on behalf of the people that I spoke to who are genuinely concerned, to see what work he can do with his officers at works which can be done to Cleaver Gardens, which can mitigate some of the flood risk in that area. There were a number of residents, particularly in 2 blocks, if I remember rightly, whose entrance points were completely submerged by water, and they were having to access the building through someone's front living room, and that cannot be acceptable. What the lady who I spoke to was actually going through a disabled resident's household to actually get backwards and forwards between there. And that disabled resident was fortunate to have a support network around her, but if the flooding had been more serious and we had been just up north in the Yorkshire area, it could have been a lot worse. And I think we should be thankful actually that the flooding was contained, but I am sure that there must be work that can be done by this authority, either on its own or with partners, that includes the County Council, and I would assume the Environment Agency as well, to try and put some mitigation measures in place, because we cannot afford to let this happen again. Those residents have been through it twice to my knowledge. I know that they also have some more minor flooding issues, but Storm Dennis and Storm Kira a week before has caused some significant issues. And I think as a council, I'm sure every councillor in the room would want us to see what can be done to try and mitigate, if not completely eliminate, that risk. So I would hope the portfolio holder will take that away and perhaps work with the leader of the council to undertake to see what work can be done to try and help the residents of Cleaver Gardens. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Councillor Wilson, I'll be voting in favour of this budget. I'd like to put on public record my thanks to Dawn Dawson, Simone Hines and Craig Pugh, who no doubt have spent numerous hours trying to get this budget together. I've just got two brief things that I'd like to say. First of all, I think we need to pay a lot of credit to Dawn Dawson for everything that she's done on the modular housing scheme. It's been a very successful project, but of course I would like to lobby Councillor Watkins for numerous brownfield sites in my council ward that could be used for future modular housing developments. You probably know the one I'm referring to. The other thing I just wanted to say, I hold a monthly surgery at Catherine Ward Hall, which is in Collycroft, and I had a resident there who said that she's heard rumours that the ILO's independent living officers are going to be cut across the council. Now I know these things are, taken out of proportion, and there's Chinese whispers and whatnot. But obviously, in this budget, there is a commitment towards £750,000 towards shouted alarm call systems, and I just like it on record, just for clarity, that the introduction of these new alarms are not going to be a replacement as such for independent living officers in those complexes, because the ILOs do a very good job. Their main purpose, obviously, is to visit the elderly people in those complexes to see that they're doing well, and obviously a call system wouldn't really be able to do that. But yeah, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I bring back the seconder and the mover of the proposal, Councillor Walmsley.
I want to actually pick up and echo the points that Councillor Wilson just made, specifically regarding Cleaver Gardens and the number of incidents we've had here, not just this year, but obviously in previous years. I don't think I can add more than the accounts Councillor Wilson gave of the local residents, a number of which have contacted me, and I know that I did have an update from Dawn Dawson yesterday, I think it was. My days have blurred a little bit. But it would be very good if we could see some longer term remedial action going in there, and whether there is anything that we can look within budget financial year, if there's something that we could look to perhaps try and do that. And I agree with Councillor Wilson, it will require work with partner agencies, and it's probably no small task, but I do hope that Councillor Watkins will not be afraid of the big challenges, and just hope that we can come to some sort of betterment of this situation for them once and for all. I think that the residents there have been through enough. I know there are complexities with the way in which it's part owned, part managed, part HA, and there are complexities there that make some of that work difficult, but I think there are some remedial works that could be done. And so, yeah, again, just to echo Councillor Wilson's reply, we're very grateful if we could look at anything within the budget year for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Right to speak.
Visionary budget in the HRA budget that is being proposed. I'm just looking at the over 26 million total capital programme. Some of the things here I witness on a daily basis when I go around my patch: level access showers, roof covering modifications, slabs to tarmac in Bridge Street, flats, one of the previously sheltered complexes in my area, has recently had tarmac replacing slabs, and that is just such a tremendous life-enhancing improvement for those residents, and I trust that the budget that's allocated will do similar things elsewhere. Window and door replacements, I could go on, Madam Mayor, over £26 million. This is big change, big improvements, not just to our existing stock, but to our future acquisition and indeed new build programmes. A couple of things I do need to point out. The wardens were very liked by our residents. They were valued by this council. But I have to place on record, Warwickshire County Council 100% removed the Supporting People grant. It was Warwickshire County Council that led to that very difficult decision having to be made. Labour always listens carefully to professional advice of officers, and indeed, when the warden's scheme, as it was replaced with the independent living officers, we listened carefully to officers' advice, and we will continue to do so. I don't respond to rumours, but this budget doesn't show me anywhere, Councillor Evans, that there is any intention of removing independent living officers. And I think we need to quash those rumours right away. And I would suggest, Councillor Evans, that when you read this budget proposal, you would be able to reassure your residents, because it's clearly been in the public arena for quite some time. Madam Mayor, I believe this is a prudent budget, but it is a budget that sets out a big vision for the future of our council housing stock, which is so vitally important, that continues to provide affordable homes and continues to try and increase that number, although we must acknowledge right to buy in this particular respect is not always helpful. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Some of the questions that was put forward, £500,000. We've been working with Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service, especially around the stay put policy, which, as you know, wasn't the best as in like Grenfell. So we've been working with the Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service. We've had some external fire risk assessments done, and so identify some work that needs doing. So we'll be doing them works as soon as possible. We have a timescale that we're going to. We know what works we've got to do now, and until that work is done, the security guards will stay, because it's the safety of our residents that is the utmost to us. Cleaver Gardens, yep. Know all about Cleaver Gardens. I had a phone call yesterday about it. We was there on site at 7 o'clock in the morning, again working with Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service, the Environment Agency. I have had meetings with the Environment Agency, Warwickshire Fire and Rescue Service on site at Cleaver Gardens, and we're waiting for some recommendations to come back from the Environment Agency. And as soon as we get that back, and then we'll look at what they've said. But it is an Environment Agency problem who should be doing the work. Also, what you could help me with is you could lobby Warwickshire County Council to adopt Cleaver Gardens, because it's never been adopted, and I'm meeting with them next month, I think. Not on just Cleaver Gardens, but on lots of other unadopted roads. So if you can lobby Jeff Clark and that to adopt it, that'd help us out as well. Brownfield sites, yep. Building on them as quick as we can, but the problem is we're building a small amount of houses on brownfield sites. Is it does take as much time to go through 4 or 5 houses as it does 30 houses, so we're trying to look at some bigger sites. But we are looking, and we're out there looking for sites now, and we will build when we can, because as you've just heard about the right to buys, we are needing to build at least 50 a year to keep up with the right to buys. So constantly looking, constantly working, and I'm sure you know that I'm here to take up a bit challenge. No problem at all. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Vote, and it is again a recorded vote.
Okay. Again, indicate for or against the motion. Councillor Beaumont.
For.
Councillor Brindley Edwards. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Croft.
For.
Councillor Daffin. Sorry. Councillor Doughty. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Gazzain, his apologies. Councillor Glass.
For.
Councillor Golby. Councillor Gran.
For.
Councillor Gutteridge. Councillor Hancox.
For.
Councillor Hocking. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Condacor has left the meeting. Councillor Welling-Lash. Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Longdon. Councillor Pandare. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Pomfret. Councillor Rudkin. Councillor A. Sargent. Councillor J. Sargent. Councillor J. Shepherd. Councillor T. Shepherd. Councillor Smith. Councillor Tandy.
4.
Councillor Tromans.
4.
Councillor Walmsley.
4.
Councillor Watkins.
4.
Councillor Wilson.
4.
That is agreed unanimously. Moving to agenda item 12C, the Treasury Strategy and Budgetary Framework 2020-21. Councillor Jackson, could I invite you?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I am more than happy to do so. I would refer members to the addendum, which clearly shows the changes to this as a result of decisions made earlier in the evening. I so move that report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone wish to speak? Vote. It will be another recorded vote.
Okay. Again, for or against the motion. Councillor Beaumont. Councillor Brindley-Edwards. Councillor Brown. Councillor Croft. Councillor Daffin. Councillor Doherty. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Evans. Councillor Gazane is apologies. Councillor Glass. Councillor Golby. Councillor Gran. Councillor Gutteridge. Councillor Hancox. Councillor Hocking. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Condacor has left the meeting. Councillor Llewellyn-Nash. Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Longdon. Councillor Pandair. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Pomfret. Councillor Rudkin. Councillor A. Sargent. Councillor J. Sargent. Councillor J. Shepherd. Councillor T. Shepherd. Councillor Smith. Councillor Tandy.
4.
Councillor Tromans. Councillor Walmsley. Councillor Watkins. Councillor Wilson.
Okay, that was agreed unanimously. 12D, the committee timetable of meetings. Councillor Jackson, could I invite you to move the committee timetable?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This particular timetable has been shared with all group leaders. There was a slight amendment that I think that took account of work-life balance made at Cabinet. That is in the addendum received, and with no further ado, I move that, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Need to be a recorded vote, because I see all those in favour. Show of hands, please. Second. Sorry, Councillor Evans. That was my fault, not yours.
Yeah, I agree with the amendment that Councillor Jackson made at Cabinet regarding moving OSPs a few weeks after full councils, or not straight after the night before. I would like to make an amendment, as I did 12 months ago, to this timetable, and I beg to move that all meetings for the 2020, 2021 and 2021-2022 municipal year be moved to 6 p.m, with the exception of the Planning Applications Committee. And in doing so, if you allow, Madam Mayor, I will make my propose a speech for that now. I think as a council we have to ensure that our meetings are as accessible as possible for our taxpayers. It's their right. When we're discussing matters, policies, changing policies, budgets that affect their locality, they have every right to ensure that they can attend a council meeting that is at a reasonable time. Now, we have a working population in this borough. A lot of people, I accept not all people, but a lot of people will do a standard 9 till 5 job. I accept there's some shift workers in the borough who will not do that. But the standard is 9 till 5. And a number of our committees at the moment, such as the overview and scrutiny panels, actually start at 5 o'clock. And I know a number of members, not just from the opposition, but also the controlling group, sometimes struggle to get to meetings for 5 o'clock, or like myself, the climate change working group that starts at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I have to take time out of work to get to those meetings on time. The line that Labour always take on this is, actually when it comes to things like the external scrutiny panel, we wouldn't be able to get the external bodies into those scrutiny panels. I don't think that's the case, but hypothetically it might be the case that they can't arrive for a meeting at 6 o'clock. Fine. there's provisions within the council constitution that mean that if, for example, we have someone from the George Eliot Hospital who can't make 6 o'clock but has to be there at 5 o'clock, the chair of the external scrutiny panel can move the start time from 6 to 5 if they wanted to. So there's provisions to do that, and I'm delighted by the number of young Conservatives who have come forward to stand as local government candidates in the forthcoming council elections in May, and a number of them do work 9 till 5. So I think it's important that we ensure that the meetings are accessible as well for future councillors should they gain their seats in May. Also, for Councillor Jackson, in this committee, in the substantive committee timetable, there's no mention of the local plan committee. That's actually an enshrined committee, I believe, now in the council's constitution. When's the next meeting going to be? It's not timetabled. So, but yeah, anyway, I move that formally that all meetings for the next 2 municipal years start at 6 p.m. with the exception of the planning applications committee. Thank you very much.
Is there a second? Thank you. Are there any partial Pomfret?
Voting against this because Councillor Evans brought this up last year. If it's so important, why hasn't he put it through the proper machinery so everybody could be consulted on it? Apparently, because it's convenient for some people to have meetings starting at 6, we're all going to find it convenient. Well, there might be people who could start shift at 10 o'clock. We haven't not really considering them, are we? I think it's an inappropriate time and place to bring this up. And if he wants to have this discussed, as I say, there are plenty of places where it can be done. As I say, I'm going to be voting against it, and I don't think making changes like this at such short notice is on at all. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
I suppose some members want to get off on their very long journey home, which is why they won't even entertain such a thought. But actually, Councillor Jackson had a very, very powerful phrase which she used in opening up this recommendation, and that is work-life balance. Many councillors have to spend time travelling to and from work, and also residents who wish to come to committee meetings. They would also have to try and take time off work, and it's a lot more difficult for residents to try and get time off work than for councillors, because there is some legal protection for councillors, but residents in particular will struggle to get here for 5 o'clock, and we are excluding them from the democratic process. The actual proper channel is to do it at full council, Councillor Pomfret. That's what Councillor Evans has done. It is for council to decide its calendar, and it is for council to decide those times. Now, we aren't going to please everyone all the time. I accept that, and there will be shift workers, but shift workers wouldn't be able to attend a meeting at 10 o'clock anyway if they can't make a meeting at 5 or 6. You have to try and strike a happy medium. Now, a number of officers, and I know this because I also work in the public sector, there is such a thing as flexi time. And I know that that is available to officers too. So I don't think we're placing an undue burden on officers to staff it an hour later. We have a number of senior officers here tonight who are here, I think it's now 10 to 10. Now, with the best will in the world, I don't think an OSP, unless it's particularly contentious, is going to run until 10 to 10. If it is, then it's a very poor chairman who does that. Full council, I think we can accept, Madam Mayor, because it's slightly more contentious. And we deal with bigger issues normally as a whole, policy setting and voting on decisions. But when you are reviewing, I don't think you would be here until 10 to 10. In fact, I can't remember. Actually, there might have been a few under Councillor Jill Shepherd's tenureship when I was first elected. I think we just went over 3 hours on a few occasions on the old social overview and scrutiny. But by and large, we don't. And I don't think it is unfair or unreasonable to try and strike that balance for, yes, councillors in trying to get there so that we can do our jobs effectively. But more importantly, for residents to be able to come and see us in action. We don't live stream our meetings. They have to wait until 2 days afterwards. The least we can do is try and make it as accessible as possible. If we are, as the controlling group says, an open and transparent council, indeed I think they say the most open and transparent council, vote to put meetings at 6 and allow more people to come to our meetings. It's not that difficult, Madam Mayor, so I will vote for the recommendation.
Councillor Wilson has just summed up almost everything that I wish to say, apart from to say that, I mean, I'm personally very fortunate. I work in the public sector, I have flexi time, and I can generally make the meetings. But as anybody knows, trying to get here from anywhere outside of the centre of Nuneaton, getting into Nuneaton for 5 o'clock is the worst possible option. So from an environmental point of view, from a taking traffic off the roads point of view, if we can come at 6 o'clock, we basically move some of that traffic which is clogging up the roads in the rush to 5 o'clock, comes in later. It makes it easier for us all. We use less fuel, we put less pollution in the air, and it just makes more sense. So let's have meetings at a time that's more practical for residents, that's more practical for effectively everybody to get here, and is better for the common good of us all. It makes sense. Do it.
I have some sympathy with it, I've got to say, but I'm not going to vote for it, and I'll tell you why. As a working council, when I was working, I've retired now, so it's completely different, but when I was working, yeah, I did have to have time off work, and I know it's difficult for some people to get time off work, and it was becoming difficult for myself, but I had to have time off work, and I had to come to my meetings. I had to leave in enough time to travel from Birmingham to here. We all, as councillors, we all have those problems. With the shifts and the way shifts were in my industry, it wouldn't have mattered whether it was at 6 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon. The shifts change. As I'm retired now, I can come any time I want, any time. So it's not about me. And I understand, that there's residents out there that work and they have difficulty in getting here for 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, maybe 6 o'clock, whatever the time is. I'm a bit a myth why every meeting should be moved to 6 o'clock except for planning, because the same rules should be for planning as well. If we're saying residents can't get there before 6 o'clock. It's always going to be a difficult one, and one of the big problems, I hear what people say, people in working in local government or working in that area can get flexi time. I understand that, but some organisations, if you're inviting somebody in for I don't know, one of the scrutiny committees, for example, they ain't going to come. There's, you're going to have difficulty getting some of those organisations to release staff to come in here. God, I mean, at the end of the day, we have difficulty sometimes even getting county officers to the borough. So other organisations are going to be very difficult. So there has to be a fine balance. And that fine balance, I think, there is a balance within what we've got. And I think, if you want to change that, then I think it should be for a future scrutiny to actually have a look at the whole issue of meetings. That's just my opinion now.
Thank you. Thank you. And the seconder and mover, Councillor Hancock.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Madam Mayor. It's a pity this has come at such a late time, and I think it could have gone through other channels and had a review of it that way. And the one thing that is absolutely clear is there's no clarity on it. There's no happy medium, as Councillor Wilson has said. What's good for one person is not suitable for another. So there's no happy medium. In regards to the planning meetings, I don't agree with Councillor Lloyd about it fitting in with other things. Very often, planning meetings have to start at 3 o'clock in the afternoon for site visits, and sometimes go on till the close of play at 8 o'clock. In the old days, before we had so much delegation, very often we had to pencil in a meeting for the following night because we would have been running out of time. And the thing about shift patterns, there are no standardised shift patterns. When we worked in the factories and done a 6 till 2, 2 till 10, 10 till 6, It's gone out the window. Some of them do it now. Some people will be starting down Bermuda at midnight tonight. There's no thing that said that. You've got 0 hours people that could call in at a moment's notice. Councillors, those that are in employment, are allowed time away from work. It's there. It's written in the legislation. You can have time away from work. It's okay saying about flexi time, but we do need those council officers to support us at meetings. And ultimately, the chair of any committee, working party, has some flexibility in arranging times. They're in there for the diary purposes, so it's in your diaries. They're a long way away, and that's it. What about parents with young children? 6 o'clock at night, maybe even 5 o'clock. Whatever it is, it's maybe not suitable. So it's one of those arguments nobody can really win. So it can be looked at again. In fact, over the years, we have looked at it on many, many occasions. And we've kind of, I think, got to the point of it's based on those previous reviews. I'm more than happy if people want to do it again in the future, but it's based on personal experiences and things, and there will be no happy medium. Do we want to go back to the days of when we had 10 o'clock meetings? Stop for lunch, start again in the afternoon, a bit like the county do now, and country council, they do stuff like that. It's a shame it's come now. There is no happy medium. I don't know how you resolve it. Thank you.
Councillor Longdon.
I've had to sit here in silence all night. Been forced into it health-wise. But there comes a time when you get to the point where you're fed up with reiteration and verbal diarrhoea. And that's all that's been coming from over there all night. And this is just another example of it, to keep us here a bit later. Well, I ain't going to die just at this moment, so you'll have to wait for another day for that. But there is no evidence whatsoever that the current timings are a block on residents coming to meetings. They will attend if they're interested in it. Most of the time there is nobody there. Very rarely do you see residents at meetings. Look how many's in the gallery tonight. I mean, you had Rent-A-Crowd, of course, up in the corner. All night. I mean, it's just an impossible task to deal with on the hoof like this. No evidence whatsoever that things will get better. No evidence that the current system is wrong. It's just a waste of time even discussing it at this point. So grow up, get on with it, and wait. If you get into power, bring it back and see how you go then. But tonight, just forget it and go away and go home and go to bed.
I'm standing up just to speak from my point of view as a councillor who represents their constituents, and I feel that I need to attend every single meeting that I've put my name down for. So pardon me if I'm whinging, but in order for me to get to this meeting tonight, I had to fight for it. I've been up since 3:30 doing a shift to come here, and sometimes when we come here to these meetings, just from Coventry to Nuneaton, I have to spend, and I know you're going to be shocked at this, up to 2 hours on a bus. I know that sounds stupid to car drivers, but to people that still use public transport, that is a long, long time. Now, I've been up for, 18, 19 hours now. So pardon me if I would like to see meetings maybe start that little hour extra. Starting at 6 o'clock makes all the difference to my circumstance. And I know that I'm supposed to have 10 days off, is it, for council public duties? But some companies just don't listen, okay? And I've had to fight to be here tonight. So please, I am not whinging, I am not well, but I've made it, okay?
Madam Mayor,
Yeah.
I don't think I mentioned councillors. The whole argument over there was for residents. So I'm sorry, Councillor Llewellyn Nash, that's your circumstances, mine are different, everybody's different, but I never mentioned you, I never mentioned any councillors, I was just going on what was said by Councillor Evans. So take it as it was meant, and the argument was against what Councillor Evans was making out, not around you personally, and don't take it personally, or I'll do it as well.
Thank you. Councillor.
I think it was actually verbal diarrhea that was mentioned, not whinging. And the gestures for you lot and everything else, so it was quite pointed. I'm standing up for the working parents in the room. Hello. It's really difficult to get here for 5 o'clock. There are some instances where I actually have to bring my children to this, to sit in meetings. I run round like an absolute... I can't use the words. A BAF. Work it out for yourself. To try and get here for 5 o'clock. I have a job that is flexible, but even so, it's still difficult for me. So my residents can't get here all the time, and it's not as accessible or as open as it could be with a small change. That's all it is, a small change. Now, I know that we operate flexi-time, and I am absolutely positive that when somebody wants an extra 2 days holiday, they rack it up on flexi-time, and it's quite easy to do. So if there's a will to use flexi-time for pleasurable outcomes, I'm sure that flexi-time would actually be engaged on for professional services, such as a slightly later meeting. I think if people want to build up a bit of flexi-time, it might actually be a nice option for them to have a meeting starting an hour later and do that extra hour every now and again. It's not just about shift workers, it's actually, as you say, work-life balance. It's about engaging with residents, which a 5 o'clock meeting start doesn't really allow for that. As it's been mentioned that 6 o'clock might be too late, so maybe we'll look at 5:30 when we get into power. So there's one thing, we will actually look at this, and we do want to make an open and accessible arena for everybody to come in and sit down and have their say. And the renter crowd, at least it's better than having momentum up there.
Councillor Phillips, you seconded the motion and reserve your right to speak.
Move the vote, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Do you wish to wind up, Councillor Jackson?
Really thank Councillor Hancock's actually for talking about parents who have responsibilities. And I have to say, I had 3 young children, they're now 3 adult children. 3 adults, not adult children, they're 3 adults. But whether a meeting was at 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, it would have interfered with the normal things you do with children, bath time, story time, putting kids to bed. It is really important that we respect parents, and whatever time of the day or night you hold a meeting, you're not going to please everybody. Councillors opposite, several of them attended the cabinet meeting last week when this was actually discussed and when I put the amendment there. Councillor Evans was there. He didn't speak on this item then. Councillor Wilson was there. He didn't speak on the item either. Councillor Golby was there. Didn't speak on the item.
By that point, because I have my daughter with me.
Okay. Councillor Smith. Okay. Councillor Golby left, proving that, timings of meetings are difficult. Councillor Smith was there. Not a word. Madam Mayor, I think a lot could have been done had representation been made at the cabinet meeting. I find it not the most professional way for the opposition to work in moving this. It would have been before 10 o'clock, but at such a late hour of the day. I suggest, as Councillor Phillips, that we move immediately to the vote.
So we will. It is a show of hands. So could I ask all those in favour of the amendment, please show. And those against the amendment, please show. Okay, the amendment is lost. Ah.
Abstentions.
Any abstentions? Okay, so we move to the proposal. All those in favour of the proposal as printed, please show. Okay, and that is carried. Thank you. Right, I then move to 12E, and the resolutions are set out on the addendum. The council needs to approve its own council tax requirement tonight. However, can I draw your attention to the resolution point 4, in that this is only an indicative precept from Warwickshire County Council, as they will not be holding their formal budget setting meeting until tomorrow. The council, therefore, need to approve paragraphs 1 to 9 tonight, but note that it will be necessary for a separate council tax setting committee to be held once the Warwickshire County Council and Warwickshire Police and Crime Commissioner precepts are known. Councillor Jackson, do you wish to move 1, paragraphs 1 to 9 of the draft resolution, setting the amount of council tax for the council as set out on the addendum, and 2, the arrangements for the council tax setting committee be noted? So, are there anyone who wishes to comment? So therefore it is a recorded vote. Simone?
Okay, please indicate for or against the motion. Councillor Beaumont. For. Councillor Brynny Edwards. Councillor Brown. Councillor Croft. Councillor Daffin. Councillor Doherty. Councillor Elliott. Councillor Evans. Councillor Gissane. Apologies. Councillor Glass. Councillor Golby. Councillor Gran. Councillor Gutteridge. Councillor Hancox. Councillor Hocking. Councillor Jackson. Councillor Condacor has left. Councillor Llewellyn Nash. Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Lloyd. Councillor Longdon. Councillor Tander. Councillor Phillips. Councillor Pomfret. Councillor Rudkin. Councillor A. Sargent. Councillor J. Sargent. Councillor J. Shepherd. Councillor T. Shepherd. Councillor Smith. Councillor Tandy. Councillor Tromans. Councillor Walmsley. Councillor Watkins. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you. Right, that concludes the meeting. The items that were left on the agenda will be presented to the next full council meeting in April. Could I wish you all a safe journey home?
All rise, please.
Ooh.